Hello and welcome to Memo Anime Recaps. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Weeks after Ushio's experience at the now decommissioned HAMMR facility, Hakumen, who dwells in the sea, drowns in hatred despising the beast spear and what it did to her centuries ago. Because of that, she sends Hyos in hundreds aiming for the city in Japan. One day, Nakamura reveals a bag she made for Ushio to her friends, Reiko and Inoue. Reiko approves of the bag, and this makes Nakamura happy because Ushio will like it. At sunset, Ushio leaves Nakamura's house after finding out that she is not back from school. On his way home, he bumps into Nakamura, but they don't converse at first. Ushio walks away, but the thought of not seeing Nakamura again makes him turn his back to go talk to her. One thing leads to another, and Ushio finds out that Nakamura has lost her memories of him. This leaves him shocked because a few seconds back they were talking. Late that evening, Ushio heads over to Nakamura's house to find out if Nakamura is back. Although Ushio has a good relationship with Nakamura's parents, they don't seem to remember who he is. This alone leaves Ushio shocked, and it gives the impression that Nakamura dumped him. Before he leaves, Nakamura's dad offers him food and he eats with tears building up in his eyes. Later that night, the leader of Western Yokai, Shino, joins forces with Nomura so they can stand a chance against Hakumen when the time comes. A large vessel is under construction, and it will be used to achieve this purpose. On the other hand, barrier-building yokais called Kazushi are assembled after mass production. With this stack of weaponry, both leaders are confident in their future battle against Hakumen when the time comes. Something weird happens while Takisaka travels to the present. While traveling through the portal, he screams about trouble which concerns the beast spear. In the meantime, Ushio heads off a bus and approaches the Kohame sect, only to find out that all the monks have turned to stone. The monks in attendance are his dad, Nagira, Hinowa, and others. This discovery shocks Ushio, and he wonders what he will do because he is all alone. While Ushio drowns in his thoughts, Tora arrives carrying a serious look on his face. Ushio, upon seeing Tora, panics a little bit, but smiles after he finds out that Tora has not forgotten about him. Moments later, Ushio joins Tora on a flight away from the sect. On the way, Tora speaks about Inoue, saying that he sensed something different about her because she never actually feared yokais the way other humans do. Tora has reason to believe that some mystical power lies within Inoue. At the Mayako's residence, Inoue makes dinner for Kiryu. Kiryu, on the other hand, is sad that Inoue has to bear the burden of taking care of him after the sect requested she should do so. Meanwhile, Inoue is excited that she has someone to take care of, and she attributes Kiryu to her younger brother. The following day, Ushio arrives at Inoue's house to see her. At the entrance, he meets Nakamura, who does not remember him as Inoue's friend. One thing leads to another, and slaps are exchanged between them. Minutes after that, Nakamura gets into the house, only to see Inoue get captured by two Kazuchis. At the roof, Kiryu battles the yokais that came for Inoue, and Ushio joins him. It appears that Kiryu has no memory of Ushio, but they still join forces to fight. The people behind the attack are Shino and Nomura, and it appears that they have no memory of Ushio, including the other yokais. In a short time, the yokais leave, with Inoue and Tora flies after, with Ushio. The yokais are headed for the Western Monster's Sky Mansion, which is a bit distant from Ushio's position. On the way, they get attacked by Kagare and Raishi, setting them falling to the ground. Later that day, Ushio wakes up after having a dream where the beast spear is destroyed to bits. Tora is with him at the time, and they are both in Saya's house. When Ushio finds out that Saya still has her memories of him, he smiles and hugs her in excitement. After that, they both converse, and Ushio finds out that Hyos has devoured people of their memories of Ushio and Tora. After Tora hears this, he quickly realizes that Hakumen is up to no good. Also, Saya reveals that fear fuels Hakumen's powers, adding that Hakumen does not want a union of Tora and Ushio. From the way Saya speaks, Ushio wonders where she got the info, and then Saya reveals that Tokisaka told her. Coincidentally, Tokisaka heads out of a door, but does not look like his usual self. At the Western Monster's Sky Mansion, Nakamura and Inoue are held within a barrier as hostages. They both enter into a conversation where Inoue speaks about a boy she loves, but cannot remember. She is positive that the same boy loves Nakamura too, but Nakamura does not agree with this. Back at Saya's residence, Tokisaka speaks about a time he tried to go back in time to find Hakumen's weakness. He states that after a couple of trials traveling back, he succeeded but found out that the beast spear was destroyed to bits. At that time, Shino and Nomura were devastated when they found out, and as a result, they sought to create another beast spear. In the present, Tokisaka reveals that something is wrong with the yokais because they forgot about Tora and Ushio. He also speaks about the beast spear staging that the yokais took Inoue because she shares the same blood with J-Mei. Ushio and Tora, upon hearing this, look shocked because they had no idea that Inoue is related to J-Mei. Seconds later, Ushio powers up and destroys all the Hiyo in the room so he can go save Inoue. Later that day, Nakamura finds out from one of the yokais that Inoue will be sacrificed. Because of that, he attacks the yokai in anger, but gets tossed to the barrier. Because her life is at risk, Inoue tries to save her and uses some strange power to prevent Nakamura from being vaporized. Inoue's powers shock her because it is her first time using them. Seconds later, Shino and Nomura hurry down to Inoue's position after they hear that the barrier has been destroyed. J-Mei appears upon their arrival and begs them to stop what they want to do, but Nomura insists on sacrificing Inoue. J-Mei tries to talk the yokais out of their intentions, but she fails and gets enclosed within a barrier. Meanwhile, Ushio and Tora encounter difficulties when they reach the floating mansion. Moments later, Nakamura and the others are in a room where a furnace burns. Inoue is prepared for the sacrifice, but Nakamura insists on saying her last words to her. After she meets Inoue, she proposes a deal to the yokais. Because Inoue is meant to take over from Ushio's mother, Nakamura states that she will be wasted if sacrificed. Instead, she wants to be sacrificed in the furnace to save Inoue's life. Inoue, upon hearing this, expresses shock, but Nakamura has had her mind made up already. The yokais agree to the deal, and Nakamura approaches the furnace to get cooked. Outside the building, Tora and Ushio finish defeating all the yokais opposing them. Following that, Tora takes Ushio on a trip to find Inoue. Ushio, on the other hand, thinks about the people he failed to save, and because of that, he wishes not to lose anyone else. Meanwhile, Nakamura climbs the stairs leading to the furnace and begins to remember Ushio, but in fragments. At some point, she gets to the top of the furnace and jumps in it. In split seconds, Ushio arrives at the scene with Tora and sees that Nakamura is about to get cooked. Because he does not want to lose anyone else, he sprints for the furnace and catches Nakamura before she gets burnt. The way he does it shocks Tora and the others, but even at that, Nakamura sustains some burns on her skin. An epic scene is displayed as a shadowy perspective of Ushio is shown carrying Nakamura, who is unconscious at the time. Seconds later, Nomura gets pissed and sends his men after Ushio, but Tora fights them off. Because the yokais lost their memories of Ushio and Tora, Ushio decides not to fight them, but this pisses Tora off. Even at that, Tora covers Ushio with his body to prevent him from getting beaten to death. It gets to a point where Inoue gets fed up, and as a result, she uses her powers to fly Ushio and Tora, including herself, out of the building. While in midair, Kagare jumps and pies some healing medicine on Ushio and Nakamura. Meanwhile, an explosion occurs around the mansion that catches the attention of the yokais. They turn back only to see some yokais loyal to Hakumen. Their leader, Guren, resembles Tora, but with slight differences. The presence of Hakumen's minions makes the yokais ignore Ushio and fight off Guren and the other yokais. Tora, Ushio, and others seize the opportunity to leave their location, but while on the way, Ushio changes his mind about leaving. He feels concerned about the yokais because they only forgot about him. This alone shocks Tora, but even at that, Ushio wishes to help the yokais fight of Hakumen's minions. Because of that, Tora aims for Ushio at the mansion so he can join the yokais to fight. Moments later, Tora watches as Kappa helps to pour a healing potion on Nakamura. Tora looks pissed, but J-Mei and Inoue help lighten the mood. The way they both speak to Tora compels him to fly off and join Ushio even as he claims that he does not care about Ushio. Meanwhile, Tora arrives and joins Ushio in a battle to fight off Halumen's yokais. Both of them eliminate lots of enemy yokais in seconds of fighting, and this leaves Shino and Nomura shocked because of the way they fight. After Tora and Ushio are done defeating Hakumen's yokais, they depart the premises, leaving the yokais speechless. Meanwhile, Inoue leaves with J-Mei, since she has been chosen to become the next Oyakume. The following day, Ushio arrives in the woods to get Nakamura from Saya and Omamori. There he finds out that Inoue is with J-Mei, but he wishes to meet her soon. In the end, he says some words to Saya and Tora supports him in flight while he carries Nakamura. Later that day, Nakamura lies unconscious at the Mikado Hospital in the city. The doctors and nurses taking care of her find out that her wounds are healing at a faster rate compared to normal humans in similar situations. At sunset, Ushio arrives at the Fugen Temple only to find Hyu at the entrance. It appears Hyu remembers him because he possesses an eye that sees through lies. The yokai who killed his family is the one responsible for this ability because he left a scratch on Hyu's eye. Ushio leads the way to the house but then finds 5 variations of Tora. Ushio looks shocked upon seeing them, and Tora proceeds to fight thinking that his variants are Hakumen's minions. Before he could attack, Hyu tells him to stand down because the beast spear is not reacting to the variant's presence as it does other yokais. From the looks of things, Hyu knows Tora's variants. He explains that the beast's speed is non-reactive because it summoned the variants. This info shocks Ushio. He calls the variants Azafuse, but for some reason, Tora looks pissed. Also, Hugh states that he went back in time with Tokisaka and saw the monster who took his family from him 15 years ago. Seconds later, Gurren arrives at the scene, and Hugh gives off a weird smile. One of the Azafuses jumps to attack Gurren, but gets his head chopped off in seconds. After that, you speak to Gurren, and the way he speaks to him leaves Gurren curious. One day, while the thief was running away from captivity, he encountered the beast spear in the mountains and picked it up. After he picks it up, a yokai attacks him, but he says it easily with the spear. Because of the power he gets from the spear, he went on killing yokais and made good money. However, the thief, Soke Aka Aguren, had his soul stolen by the spear, just like Ushio, and he became a monster like Tora. In the present, Yu explains that the same thing happened to the past people taught use the beast spear, resulting in the formation of the Azafus. Meanwhile, Tora ignores what Yu is saying because he only wants to fight and defeat Gurren. Ushio, on the other hand, realizes that Tora also wielded the spear in the past, and that is why he is an Azafus. On the other hand, Tora fights against Gurren hoping to defeat him. At some point in their battle, Gurren reveals Tot he was sent by Hakumen and has no memories of when he was a human. But one memory he remembers is when he turned to stone. In the present, Tora laughs at Gurren and mocks him because he became Hakumen's minion. Because of that, Gurren attacks him and throws him to the floor. Meanwhile, Hugh looks at Gurren and smiles for some reason, leaving Gurren confused. At the time when Hugh time traveled, he saw that it was Gurren that killed his family, which is why he is smiling at Gurren in the present. He is satisfied that he has found the yokai he has been searching for after 15 years. Seconds later, Tora proceeds to fight Gurren, but Ushio blocks him because Yu has some scores to settle with Gurren. While Gurren stands in front of Yu, he mocks him, stating that his wife and daughter tasted delicious when he ate them. This wheezes Hugh off, plunging him into engaging in a brutal combat with Gurren. Although Hugh is human, he puts up a good fight against Gurren, who is stronger than him. It gets to a point where Hayu blocks Gurren's lightning and prepares a counterattack for his enemy. However, Gurren withstands the attack and slams Hayu to the ground. After that, Gurren tries to take Hugh's eye, but he gets stabbed in the abdomen. Hugh wishes to retain the eye because he wants to use it and watch Gurren die a painful death. Unfortunately, the Azafus' presence makes Gurren retreat because he assumes that Hakumen is ready. After he flies off, the Azafus join together and morph into stone. Before their statues form, one of them tells Ushio that the source of Hakumen's power is fear of the unknown. Ushio, upon hearing this, recalls that Saya said the same thing about Hakumen's powers. Later that evening, Ushio provides first aid treatment to Hugh because he sustained injuries while in combat with Gurren earlier. Meanwhile, Tora licks candy like a baby and enters into an argument with Ushio when he gets interrupted. You smile because of the way Tora acts around Ushio. He promises to defeat Gurren the next time they battle and looks forward to watching the final battle between Tora and Hakumen. Seconds later, he appreciates Ushio for his hospitality and leaves the Fugen Temple. Later that evening, one of Hakumen's servants, who claims to be J-Mei, appears at Atsuzawa's office in the anti-yokai agency headquarters. At first, when Atsuzawa sees her, he points a gun at her, but lowers his guard when she states that she is the one who watches over Hakumen and the Beast Spear. The following day, Nakamura opens her eyes and finds herself wrapped in bandages. She tries to move, by the nurse present does not allow her because she has not recovered fully. At the Fugen Temple, Ushio tries to train, but Tora refuses to spar with him. Some armed men arrive at the scene, asking and transport Ushio in their vehicle because someone wishes to speak to him. While on the way, Nagare rides his bike toward the vehicle and slices off the top part with his powers, causing a wreck. The way he behaves makes Tora attack him, but their battle stops momentarily when Tora confirms that it is Nagare. But he wonders why he has not turned to stone like the rest of the sect. Ushio, upon seeing Nagara, becomes excited because Nagara still remembers him. On the other hand, he wonders why Nagare attacked their vehicle, but is quick to assume that the soldiers were the enemy. Unfortunately, Nagare reveals that he has taken Hakumen's side, and this shocks Ushio when he hears it. Next, Ushio and Tora arrive at the Hamar Institute, where he meets the scientists who previously worked with Helena. When Ushio meets them, he finds out that the scientists still remember him, and he seems glad. Both scientists can remember him because of a barrier projector machine they used on their brains. A conversation begins between scientists and Ushio, where the scientists explain the reason why the Azafuse and the monks turned to stone. Ushio, upon hearing this, looks happy because his dad will not remain in a stone state forever. Meanwhile, another issue lies as Ushio finds out that Atsuzawa has ordered an attack on the stone pillar at the bottom of the Okinawan seas where Hakumen lies. The previous day, Hakumen's servant managed to convince Atsuzawa to approve an attack on the stone pillar under the guise that Hakumen would be rendered useless. In the present, Ushio finds out that the attack is a trap set by Hakumen and it will be launched the following day. After the conversation with the scientists, they all proceed to a lower floor floor of the building where a large device is displayed. In the meantime, Nakamura strolls along the streets of the city in bandages. Her memory of Ushio is coming back in fragments, and she wants to see him badly because of the things she said and did to him in the past. Back at the HAMMR Institute, the scientists display the armor of the Stone Eater, a yokai that Ushio fought in the past. Ushio, upon seeing this, looks shocked, but the scientists assure him that it is safe. They intend for Ushio to use the armor in his battle against the enemy to boost his chances of winning. At sunset, Atsuzawa observes the armed submarines entering the sea while giving instructions to his subjects on the phone. Tora supports Ushio in flight, and they arrive at the Fugen Temple in minutes. Ushio comes outside and finds out that the yokais are going to destroy the monks in stone form. As a result, he switches to his beast form and begins to fight the yokais. Because he is outnumbered, he loses the first round and retreats while Tora buys him time. Shockingly, Ushio uses the armor the scientists gave him to fight the yokais, and he comes out successful in the end. After taking victory, he marvels at the way he was able to control the armor. Unfortunately, the yokais who survived launched a deadly attack on Tora, which restricted his movement. The same thing happens to Tora, and the yokais seize the opportunity to punch Tora repeatedly. The way Tora is punched causes his blood to spill on the heads of the petrified Azafuse. In the process, the heads come to life and begin to speak to Tora. They are willing to fight with Tora, even in their state, and as a result, they fuse with Tora, making him stronger. This fusion shocks the yokais who attack Tora as they watch him break free from bondage. The Azafuses promise to supply Tora with power because they want Tora to take them to the last battle against Hakumen. In seconds, a battle begins between Tora and the yokais, but it does not last because Tora vaporizes them with lightning. Ushio, on the other hand, is shocked by Tora's might, but is more shocked that the Azafuses want to fight even in their state. After that, Ushio gathers some items that are important to him from the remains of the temple, since the main building is destroyed. When he is done, he finds out that Tora is missing and goes out to look for him. While at it, he enters the cellar where he first met Tora and finds him there acting stuck to a spear. This brings back memories to Ushio and he follows suit, acting like the first time he met Tora. In the end, they both laugh after dropping a nice performance. The following day, Nakamura stops a vehicle from the HAMMR Institute and requests to see Ushio. Later that morning, Tora and Ushio speed off to the docks, where the submarines depart for the sea. On the way, Nagare attacks them, but Ushio interrupts Tora when he tries to fight Nagare. Although Tora is pissed, Ushio assumes that there is a reason behind Nagare's actions, and he wants to find out what it is. Unfortunately, Nagare attacks Ushio and beats him up, proving that he is on Hakumen's side. Seconds later, the submarines at the docks take off, and Tora suggests finishing off Nagare so they can stop the subs in time. Ushio, upon hearing this, tells Tora to go easy on Nagare and spare his life. Before Ushio leaves, he promises to make Tora regret it if he kills Nagare. After Ushio leaves, Nagare gives off a weird smile because he has longed to fight Tora. In the meantime, Ushio arrives at the command room and warns the officers that if they fire the missiles, his mum will die and Hakumen will be free. One thing leads to another, and Ushio gets thrown into a room where two engineers are present. Elsewhere, Nagare battles against Tora, and he seems to be enjoying their fight. Both parties deploy dangerous attacks and counterattacks against themselves. In the meantime, Ushio proceeds out of the building while holding a gun pointed at the engineers. At Atsuzawa and the other soldiers, the engineers are hostages. Meanwhile, Ushio is using them to get out of the facility unharmed. It appears that one of the engineers came up with this idea so that Ushio could fulfill his objectives. They get to a small submarine, but Nakamura arrives as Ushio is about to get into the vessel. Nakamura, upon seeing Ushio, remembers that he is the one who saved him from the furnace. She weeps while speaking to Ushio, and expresses that she does not want to let Ushio go because she wants him to stay alive. Even at that, Ushio intends to enter the submarine, but he promises that he will be gone for a short while. Before he enters the vessel, Nakamura gives him a device from the scientist, and also a message. The message is that Ushio should save the Oyakume before the missiles are launched. The thought of Ushio leaving makes Nakamura shed more tears, but Ushi tells her that he loves her. Elsewhere, Tora knocks Nagare to the ground, asking him if their battle is over, but Nagare gets back up on his feet while his arms grow bigger. This time, he launches more brutal attacks against Tora and manages to render him immobile. While Tora stands restrained, Nagare speaks of the time when he met one of Hakumen's servants. At that time, Nagare denied having any desire to follow Hakumen, but the yokai tells him he is lying because he craves to fight Tora. In the present, Nagare intends to eliminate Tora because he believes that Ushio will see him for who he is if he is successful. Tora, upon hearing this, begins to laugh at Nagare because he could not bear to see Ushio's eyes. The way he laughs pisses Nagare off to the extent that he starts hitting Tora's face. Even as Tora is restrained, he manages to pull his limbs from the ground and attack Nagare. While fighting, he mocks Nagare, making him less coordinated. Tora then uses the opportunity to land a fatal attack on Nagare, tossing him to the ground. Despite the fact that Nagare lies weak on the ground, he gets back on his feet and prepares a kill strike for Tora. Before he attempts the attack, Tora assumes a defensive stance and looks confident that he can take whatever Nagare has for him. When Nagare attempts the strike, Tora negates it and attacks Nagare in a way that drives him closer to death. While Nagare loses blood, he realizes that he has lost against Tora and accepts defeat. After the battle, Nagare tells Tora to tell Ushio that he switched to Hakumen's side and tried to kill Tora. He also adds that Tora should say he didn't hold back for this reason and killed him as a result. In the meantime, Tora gets curious and asks Nagare if all the things he said to Ushio in the past were real. Nagare then replies saying yes, that he meant what he said to the extent he could not look Ushio in the eye anymore. Minutes later, Nagare kicks the bucket, and after Tora finds out, he flies away, shattering glass while in flight. Later that day, Ushio's submarine descends into the sea, heading for the stone pillar supporting Japan. While on the way, Ushio apologizes to the crew for dragging them into his mess. The senior crew member, Goro, states that he believed Ushio right from the time he complained about his situation earlier. At some point, the vessel experiences a rapid increase in pressure, which makes the other crew member suggest aborting the mission. Meanwhile, Goro proceeds with the trip because they are close to the stone pillar. As they get closer to the stone pillar, the pressure increases, and Goro's partner freaks out when he sees Hakumen's size. The increased pressure makes Goro's partner suggest aborting the trip, but Goro insists and begs his partner to assist him. Because of the way Goro speaks, his partner agrees to help him, and they both increase the spread of the sub to its max. In the end, they arrive close to the stone pillar where a mythical passage leads into the pillar. Before Ushio leaves the sub, he expresses gratitude to Goro and Akaban for helping him arrive at the stone pillar. Minutes later, he walks through the barrier leading to the stone cave and thinks about his mother. After he gets through the barrier, he sees his mother partially covered in dust sitting in the middle of the cave. The condition Ushio finds his mother makes him appear speechless when he gets closer to her. Seconds later, his mother calls his name and he hurries to go meet her. After meeting her, she bows and apologizes to Ushio because she assumes she is not worthy to be called Mum. Meanwhile, Atsuzawa and his forces monitor the pillar from their radar as their vessels move closer to launch an attack on it. Back in the cave, Sumako speaks to Ushio about the time she left him. Meanwhile, Ushio looks speechless in front of his mum despite the fact that he has lots of things to say to her. His reaction becomes worse when his mum touches a scar on his face, seeking to know what caused it. After Sumako finds out that the scar was caused by a yokai, she feels bad about herself because she was never there to watch over Ushio. Meanwhile, Ushio notices this and displays other scars he has around his body. While doing this, he explains that scars are ordinary for him so that his mum will not feel bad anymore. He then wipes off the dust over Sumako's hair that has accumulated over the time that she has been erecting the barrier. While at it, Sumako calls his attention and asks to pat his head. This makes Ushio feel shy because he was never expecting to hear such. Above the sea, Tora flies, wondering if Ushio made it to Hakumen. While at it, he sees two monsters of incredible size flying over him. The presence of both monsters makes Atsuzawa give the order for the subs to prepare for a strike against them. Unfortunately, the monsters are vessels for war possessing yokais of different species. One of them contains yokais of the west, and the other contains yokais for the east. Shino intends to attack Hakumen with his men, but Nomura does not support this because he still believes in the beast spear. Because of their contradicting mindsets, they both enter into an argument that escalates into a fight. Meanwhile, the humans, Atsuzawa's superior, thinks that the yokais are trying to interfere with their plan, and as such, he orders his soldiers to launch torpedoes. Just as Sumako tries to pat Ushio's head, the torpedoes make it to the pillar, causing an explosion. As a result, water begins to sip through the caves, and Sumako erects a barrier that prevents the water from sweeping her away with her son. On the other hand, Ushio is disappointed in himself because he did not make it in time. Sumako uses her strength to hold the barrier around Hakumen. It gets to a point where she bleeds from her mouth, and at this point, she suggests that the only option is to fight at the surface. As Sumako's strength wears out, her barrier becomes weak too, and as a result, Hakumen breaks free. The sight of Hakumen scares Ushio, who freezes when he sees her. Minutes after Hakumen breaks free from the barrier, she swims out of the sea and captures the Western Yokai's vessel on her way out. Tora, upon seeing Hakumen, appears speechless because he was not expecting her to be free at that point. Later that day, the eyes of the petrified monks of the Kohame sect begin to glow. In the meantime, Atsuzawa delivers reports to his superior, stating that Hakumen is free. This information shocks Atsuzawa's superior, and the naval staff present at the docks. Back at sea, Hakumen holds the Western yokais captive and Naomura's side, tries to attack Hakumen but does little damage to her. As a result, Tora watches as Hakumen destroys Shino's vessel emotional as one of Hakumen's tails turns to the Yakai Sashi he defeated in the past. Back at the cave, Ushio breaks down after he finds out that Hakumen broke the stone pillar that supports Japan. The main trigger is that Japan is going to collapse, and all her citizens will perish. Even at that, Sumako looks positive and tells Ushio that he has to defeat Hakumen on the surface to prevent such a tragedy from occurring. Because of the damage to the stone pillar, a news chopper heads towards the sea providing live information to the people of Japan. At some point, the people on the chopper proceed to the sea, where they see a scary figure of Hakumen. Since they are reporting live, the rest of the citizens see Hakumen too, and freak out. In the meantime, Hakumen destroys an island in a single strike after launching a beam blast at it. A human witnesses this and then attributes Hakumen to a demon from hell. Below the sea, Ushio becomes selfish and suggests that Sumako flee with him via the sub to guarantee their safety. He does not want her to get killed because he just met her in years. He lets his emotions take control of him, and as a result, Sumako slaps him back to reality. However, Ushio does not process the slap properly, and as such, he reverts to his beast form, preparing to fight Hakumen. He blames Hakumen for all the bad things that have happened to his life, including the part where his friends forgot about his existence. Sumako uses her powers to push the stone pillar out of the water. Before she could blink, Ushio was in midair, heading to fight Hakumen alone. While Ushio battles against Hakumen, he remembers the time Nakamura forgot about him and blames her for it. His hatred for Hakumen grows, but his mother warns him not to fight in that state. This is because his heart is full of hatred, and Hakumen cannot be defeated with hatred. Even at that, Ushio ignores his mother and continues fighting. Each tail of Hakumen transforms into a yokai that Ushio has fought in the past, thus giving him a hard time dealing damage on the enemy. It gets tough for Ushio, but after some time, Tora joins him. Although Tora is a yokai, he detects something weird about Ushio and prevents him from fighting Hakumen in his state. This makes Hakumen give off a weird laugh and mock Ushio. Seconds later, Hakumen speaks of Nagare, who she sent to betray Ushio. After Ushio hears the name, he turns and questions Tora about Nagare's condition, but Tora replies, stating that Nagare is dead. Ushio does not process the fact that Nagare is dead because he wishes he would revert to normal. He sheds tears, but Hakumen smiles as she sees that Ushio is filled with hate. Tora makes matters worse when he brags and laughs about killing Nagare. This makes Ushio leave Tora's arms, resulting in him landing on the stone pillar where his mum sits. On a different island, monks from the sect assembled after their petrification came undone. Nagira debriefs the members of the sect and he orders them to bind Hakumen with their ultimate barrier. Next, Hakumen aims a large beam blast at the island where the Kohame monks are. The fact that Ushio's father is on the island makes Ushio jump to oppose the attack, but he fails. Fortunately, Hakumen cannot do much because a barrier is still around her. She knows that Sumako is not the only one responsible for the barrier, and as such, she demands the others responsible to reveal themselves. It appears that Inoue and J-Mei are also the ones behind the barrier, because they reveal themselves after Hakumen's orders. Meanwhile, Ushio lies at the edge of the stone pillar speaking with Giryu from the spear. Their conversation intensifies the hatred Ushio has for Hakumen, and as a result, Ushio speeds off to eliminate Hakumen. While at it, Sumako and the others warn him not to attack, but he does not listen. When he stabs Hakumen with the beast spear, Hakumen does not flinch, but the beast spear breaks to pieces. The fact that the beast spear shatters shocks Ushio, Tora, and the others. Unfortunately, Hakumen uses one of her tails and flogs Ushio into the sea, setting him near death. However, Hakumen heads for the city, but Shino's vessel grabs onto Hakumen in an attempt to prevent her from destroying the city. Because of that, Hakumen restrains the vessel and takes it heading to the monks' position. Since the monks are battle-ready, they intensify their barrier, but it wears off after Hakumen aims Shino's vessel at it. This causes a nasty explosion that infuriates Inoue. In the meantime, a time portal opens, and Takisaka comes out with Kiryu. Kiryu meets up with Inoue and reveals that he went back in time with Takisaka to figure out Hakumen's weakness. He also states that he saw Hakumen being born, and the grudge between Tora and Hakumen dates back to 3,000 years ago. In the meantime, Ushio descends gradually to the bottom of the sea, and while at it, he thinks about the fact that he has lost everything. Along the line, he opens his eyes and sees Tora, but at a different time. Sometime in the past, a man named Shagakusha assaulted another man, speaking about the time he was born. As a kid, he grew up being called a cursed child, captivating more hate in his heart. Whenever Shagakusha feels hate, his shoulder throbs, and he seems to be enjoying the hatred. When Shagakusha grew up, he fought enemy soldiers with hatred and slayed them, cursing them even after their deaths. One day, he was praised amongst the villagers, but his hatred for them does not go away because they maltreated him in the past. The more hatred he feels, the more his shoulder throbs and the more blissful he gets. Later that evening, his superiors summon him to their domain and mock him for being praised around the city. After the meeting, Ryama and Shagakusha stroll to the point where they see a lady being intimidated by some men. A man from the group disrespects Shagakusha, and this makes him beat up all the men that are present with the woman. In the end, that lady appreciates Shagakusha for saving her, but Shagakusha replies by saying that he was looking for an excuse to beat the men up. The following day, Shagakusha watches over the lady while she plants seeds on her farm. At some point, Rama arrives at their location, and it appears that the lady is his sister. Rama introduces Shagakusha to his sister, stating that Shagakusha is strong. This makes Rama's sister make a joke of hiding in Shagakusha's mouth whenever a battle breaks out. The following day, Shagakusha receives info from some warriors about when the enemy will attack the city. The enemy is a huge nation, and because of that, Shagakusha predicts that his side will be wiped out in a single blow. As a result, he heads out with Rama's sister to find Rama so that they will not be slain by the enemy, even though he hates the people of the city. Meanwhile, Rama's sister is not comfortable with the fact that Shagakusha only wants to save her and her brother. She adds that everyone in the city believes that he will protect them, but Shagakusha interrupts her saying, after he runs out of the woods, he finds out that the enemy soldiers are already in formation, pointing arrows at him and Rama's sister. In a split second, Shagakusha turns around and hugs Rama's sister to protect her from being shot by the arrow. After all the shots are fired, Shagakusha sees that Rama's sister has been shot, and she nears death. Even at that, Shagakusha begs her to stay alive, but she dies after losing blood. Her death intensifies Shagakusha's hate to the point where he takes on the enemy soldiers by himself, launching life-ending punches at them. After some time, he hears a voice from his shoulder, and this shocks him. Shockingly, Hakumen tears out of his shoulder and displays herself in her true form. When Shagakusha was born, a celestial body landed in his village, killing everyone except Shagakusha. In the present, Hakumen tells Shagakusha that his body is comfortable to live in because of his heart, which was filled with hatred from a young age. She adds that Shagakusha raised her, and this info leaves Ushio shocked. Minutes later, Hakumen flies away, promising to spread destruction throughout the land. Later that day, Shagakusha finds Rama in critical condition as he nears death. The city is engulfed in flames thanks to Hakumen, who smiles at Shagakusha. Before Rama dies, he tells Shagakusha that all the villagers believed that he would save them from the enemy. He also adds that the villagers wanted to apologize to him for the cruel things they did to him in the past, right from when he was a child. After Rama passes on, Shagakusha yells in pain and Hlauman laughs. Hakumen then flies away, promising Shagakusha that he will not die because she hopes to meet him again. Weeks after Shagakusha's encounter with Hakumen, he fought and killed the Hyos present in lands that Hakumen destroyed but noticed that he did not die. He then journeyed to lands where he heard rumors of Hakumen's presence but did not find her. At some point, he heard about the beast spear and went to take it for himself because he could use it against Hakumen. In the present, Ushio's consciousness gets expelled from Shagakusha's mind, and while he leaves, he finds out that Shagakusha is Tora. This alone leaves Ushio shocked because he never expected to see such. He opens his eyes while at sea and sees the shards of the beast spear. The shards circle around him and gradually take him to the top of the sea. At Sumako's position, Kiryu tells the tale of Tora's past. After he finishes, Inoue feels bad for Tora because of what he went through while growing up. After that, Inoue and the others notice the shards of the beast spear floating close to them. Sumako looks away and sees Ushio floating at sea with some shards hovering around him. On the other hand, Ushio appreciates the shards for protecting him even in their state. It appears that he is not filled with hat like he was some hours ago. After some time, he gets up and waves at Sumako and the others, telling them that he will go after Hakumen. Meanwhile, Hakumen attacks the city, launching multiple beam blasts at it. This alone spikes fear amongst the civilians, and Hakumen uses it to fuel her powers. Atsuzawa's superior receives info about what is going on in the city. He looks frustrated when he hears that a typhoon is headed for Japan. Elsewhere, Saya stands beside Omamori and observes the changes in the weather. She is aware that Hakumen is free and wants to help stop her. The way she wants to do this does not sit right with Omamori because it is dangerous. Even at that, Saya still intends to do what she has in mind. Later that evening, Nakamura is amid the civilians, and she reconnects with her mom and dad who were searching for her. Along the line, she sees the shards of the beast spear flying above the building, and one of them pierces a Hio out of her brain. This alone returns Nakamura's memories of Ushio, and she weeps in the process. The same thing happens to the civilians and yokai alike, as the beast spear shard pierces out Hyos from their brains. In the end, everyone who lost their memories of Ushio gains them back. Afterward, Tora chases after Hakumen after she is done destroying half of the city. Hakumen notices that Tora does not fear her, and she wonders who he is. On the other hand, Tora reaches Hakumen's position in seconds and lands a nasty punch on her face. He means business this time, and Hakumen wonders why Tora can hurt her. After thinking for some seconds, she remembers that Tora is the one who brought her to the world. In the meantime, civilians evacuate the major locations in the city seeking sanctuary at a safe spot. While at it, a young boy stares at some soldiers fighting off Hyois. One adult wonders why a kid would stare at such things, but then the kid replies that he saw Tora chase after Hakumen. At one of the safe sites, the civilians rage at the policeman, because Japan is at risk of destruction. Nakamura manages to get their attention by speaking to them through a loudspeaker. She tells the civilians that they should calm down, adding that Hakumen will be defeated. One of the civilians opposes her, asking how she is so sure, but then she speaks of Ushio, who wields the beast spear. At first, the civilians doubt Ushio defeating Hakumen, but they believe after another civilian confirms Nakamura's statement. This civilian was saved by Ushio in the past, and because of that, he believes that Ushio can defeat Hakuken, because he agrees with Nakamura. The rest of the civilians begin to agree, and they remember Ushio in the process. Back at sea, Ushio puts on his armor while in the sub. Goro then detects the presence of yokais, and Ushio tells him to reveal the sub. After that, Ushio comes out from the sub and sees a united front of all yokai from east and west respectively. Shino and Numura apologize to Ushio for what they did to him in the past, and Ushio forgives them instantly. He then joins them in flight to go join in the battle against Hakumen, leaving Goro and Akabane shocked. Meanwhile, Tora battles Hakumen to the extent that his attacks deal no damage to her. Even at that, attacks again but gets beaten till he gets weak. At this point, Hakumen mocks him, and this triggers Tora to attack again, but Hakumen counters and bites him. Tora lies unconscious in between Hakumen's teeth, and he appears weak. Also, Hakumen detects that some of the humans are no more afraid of her. Meanwhile, Nakamura and other people that Ushio has helped before talk to the civilians and make them lose their fear for Hakumen. Moving on, Hakumen detects the presence of the beast spear and wonders where it is headed. After she takes a magnified look at the shard's destination, she sees Ushio flying toward her position with a handful of yokais. Because of Ushio's presence, the yokais show no fear while flying toward the enemy. In the meantime, Kyu faces Gurren in battle amid the destruction in the city. Elsewhere, Saya performs a ritual that will open the gate to the netherworld. Sometime in the past, Saya finds out from her mum that the netherworld can only be opened by their kind. The gate connects the human world to the spirit world. Only souls that have business with the human world come out of the gate, and the others do not. In the present, the gate appears in front of Saya and she proceeds to open it. Elsewhere, Ushio detects the presence of the beast spear's shards, but Hakumen arrives at their position. While Hakumen flies to attack the shards, Ushio sees Tora lying unconscious between Hakumen's teeth. He feels bad for Tora because he went alone against Hakumen and lost. Just before Hakumen tries to fire a beam blast at the shards, Hizaki Mikado arrives and restrains Hakumen within a barrier. This version of Hizaki is a spirit from the netherworld. Since Hizaki is in spirit form, Hakumen easily breaks out of her barrier. The way she breaks out of the barrier sets Tora free from her fangs. While Tora falls from the sky, Ushio grabs onto him and expresses his emotions because of what he saw in Tora's past. At some point, Ushio cries out to the shards and summons them, but they arrive at his position and enter into Tora's body. Seconds later, Ushio is left shocked as the beast spear comes out from Tora's mouth, as if it had not shattered before. Ushio then grabs onto the spear and lands at sea with Tora. He then decides to fight with the spear, even though he is at risk of becoming an Azafus. Following that, the takes off the red cloth binding the spear, gaining access to more power from the spear. He flies away from his position, aiming for Hakumen with the spear. Upon reaching Hakumen, he encounters a servant of Hakumen but easily destroys it, leaving the yokais shocked. The way Ushio fights makes Hakumen take him more seriously in battle. While Ushio attacks Hakumen, the thought of Giryu's pain swims through his mind, and he lands a deadly attack on Hakumen. The attack deals some damage to Hakumen, and as such, Sumako takes the advantage to restrain Hakumen in a barrier. Also, the scientists from earlier activate their machines against Hakumen, rendering her almost immobile. Sumako and Inoue intensify the strength of the barrier and push Hakumen backward to a specific location. While at it, Hakumen becomes pissed and sends her servants at her enemies, but the yokais erect another barrier around her, limiting her movements. The monks also erect a barrier around Hakumen and join forces to push Hakumen to the west. Because Hakumen is in a difficult position, he calls upon Gurren for help. The following morning, Hiyu regains consciousness on a lady's lawn, and after some time, Gurren arrives. The lady, upon seeing Gurren, becomes scared and holds her little daughter. Meanwhile, Hiyu stands in front of them to protect them from Gurren's reach. While he faces Gurren, he dares him to try and harm the land and child. Soon their battle begins and Hiyu launches several attacks at his enemy. At some point, Hiyu gets punched to the ground, but he recovers and gets back on his feet to fight. The fact that he is human does not prevent him from moving his body to the extreme just to inflict pain and suffering on his opponent. Sadly, his limitations set in, and he falls to his knees. While he recovers his strength, Gurren tells the lady that he ate Hayu's wife and child, which is why Hayu is protecting her. While Gurren emits electricity, Hayu adopts a defensive position and sucks the electricity into his eye. After that, he jumps into midair and takes out the eye he used in sucking the electricity from Gurren. Before he reaches the ground, he forces the eye into Gurren's mouth, but Gurren bites off his hand in the process. While Gurren eats Hugh's hand, he laughs at Hugh saying that his hand is delicious. Little did he know that he fell for Hugh's trap. Seconds later, Hugh states some incantations that cause the eye within Gurren's gut to explode. He wins the battle in the end, but falls to the ground because he has lost lots of blood. As life slips away from him, imagines going home to his wife and daughter because he has missed them. In seconds, he kicks the bucket, and the kid he saved sheds tears. Elsewhere, Ushio and the rest of the yokai join forces and push Hakumen to the west. After some time, Sumako tells Inoue to go to Tora in spirit form, and she agrees. She then projects her spirit self and flies off to meet Tora. Tora, on the other hand, floats at the top of the sea, weak and unconscious. While swimming in his thoughts, Inoue projects herself into his mind and begins to speak to him. At first, Tora looks shocked because Inoue is supposed to be fighting Hakumen with the others. It appears that Tora has given up in battle against Hakumen. Because of that, Inoue takes out a comb to make Tora turn back to human. The sight of the comb infuriates Tora, but he reconsiders his actions in the end. While Inoue combs Tora's hair, she speaks about the things she would have loved to do with Tora. At some point, she gets tired of combing the hair because Tora won't turn back to a human. As a result, she weeps, but then tells Tora that she loves him. After that, she floats away saying that she is the fourth Oyakume, and when Hakumen goes to sleep, she will have to watch over her. This alone pisses Tora off because he does not want Inoue to watch Hakumen for the next 100 years. Rather, he intends to kill Hakumen right away. As a result, he regains himself and prepares to fly towards Hakumen. Before he flies away, the Azafusis catch up to him and attach themselves to Tora's body because they want to be involved in the last battle against Hakumen. Hakumen deploys some enemy yokais from her body to attack the yokais responsible for erecting the barrier around her. The yokais succeed to an extent, but Shino and Nomura form a united front against Hakumen. Their goal is to push Hakumen to a specific point in the western direction, where they will trap her. Elsewhere, enemy yokis attack a military facility where Atsuzawa's superior is present. The soldiers there use their assault rifles against the yokis to hold them off for a while. After some time, the yokais make it inside the building and lay waste to lots of soldiers present. Just as one of them tries to eliminate Atsuzawa's boss, Raishin and Kagare arrive and kill them. Even as Raishin and Kagare save Atsuzawa's boss, Atsuzawa aims a gun at them because he was recently deceived by Hakumen's servant, who pretended to be an ally. Hours earlier, Noura ordered Raishin and Kagare to meet the humans so they could use their military power against Hakumen. Before they leave, Nomura states that their kind needs to work together with the humans to win the war against Hakumen, just as they did hundreds of years ago. In the present, Atsuzawa and his boss fire shots at an enemy yokai who wanted to attack Raishin and Kagare. After that, Atsuzawa asks Raishin and Kagare to join him. Back at sea, the Sumako, Inoue, and the monks intensify their mystical energy to push Hakumen to the west. Just as Hakumen is about to reach the targeted destination, she breaks free from the barrier, leaving Ushio and the others frustrated. Just as Ushio's on the verge of giving up, Tora arrives and they team up together to fight Hakumen. Both of them battled against Hakumen's servants and defeated them one by one. The way they fight impresses Nomura and Shino because of how coordinated they are. At some point, a portal opens and a bunch of souls strike Hakumen, pushing her to the targeted location. While Hakumen gets closer to the targeted location, the scientists from earlier set up the controls of the machine that will be used to contain Hakumen. The building they are working in is falling apart, but they are more concerned about the task at hand. In a short while, the yokais and others are successful in pushing Hakumen to the targeted location, and a barrier is set up around her to prevent her from escaping. Since Hakumen is trapped, she releases a bunch of enemy yokais from her body to escape the barrier and destroy it from the outside. Military-grade tanks arrive on the island prepared to engage Hakumen in battle. Meanwhile, Tora goes ahead to fight against the enemy yokai and defeats them one by one. The fact that the humans have a united front against Hakumen makes the civilians lose their fear of Hakumen. Back in the city, Nakamura's parents prepare food for different people and families in the city. Humans lose their fear of Hakumen across the globe, leaving Hakumen to wonder where she went wrong in her plans. The sight of Tora and Ushio infuriates her, and as such, she assumes a stance that scares the yokais. Shino tells his men and others to retreat because Hakumen has something rolled up her sleeves. Some yokais fail to make it out in time due to a result of a poisonous gas that Hakumen releases. Meanwhile, Tora and Ushio are trapped within the barrier, but for some reason, they are unaffected by Hakumen's gas. After the gas clears out, Hakumen takes a smaller form, only because she intends to take out Ushio and Tora personally. She then deploys her last two tails and uses them to engage Ushio and Tora in battle. The amount of power radiating from the tails is enormous because it produces lightning. Tora tries to attack Hakumen with his lightning, but he fails as Hakumen absorbs it. Ushio tries to, but gets stabbed by Hakumen's last tail. In the meantime, elsewhere, Nijira passes an order to all the monks that they should keep erecting the barrier around Hakumen. Hinowa then arrives at Shigure's post and takes over his duties so he can join Ushio and the others against Hakumen. Back on the western island, Tora gets beaten to the floor and Hakumen mocks his state. Even as Tora lies weak on the ground, he makes fun of Hakumen and calls her a weak beast. On the other hand, Hakumen states that Ushio has a dark fate waiting for him because he wields the beast spear. Ushio, upon hearing this, manages to get up on his feet to face Hakumen. Seconds after he gets up, he begins to transform into a full monster because the beast spear has taken much of his soul. While at it, Tora speaks to the Azafus and tells them to make him stronger, but they reply by saying that he is strong already. They then reveal that Tora is special because he was able to remain alive without turning into stone like them. Unfortunately, the Azasus morphs into a shape that resembles Hakumen, leaving Tora shocked. It appears that the Azafus are fated to become Hakumen because of their hatred for the beast. Hakumen, on the other hand, does not want to have duplicates of herself, and because of that, she attacks the Azafusi and eliminates them. At this time, Ushio manages to slow down his transition, and he joins Tora to attack Hakumen. Back in the city, enemy yokais attacks Nakamura's parents, but Bal arrives with her kind to stop the attack. After she confirms that Nakamura and the others are safe, she flies away. In the meantime, Hakumen's minions head to Saya's position to prevent her from keeping the gate open. Before the minions can do any damage, Reiko's father attacks them and disappears back to the netherworld. Back at the western island, Ushio looks confident that he can defeat Hakumen. He is confident because he knows that Hakumen fears the beast spear. Also, Tora manages to decipher why Hakumen looks at them the way she does. According to him, Hakumen is filled with jealousy. After that, he laughs at Hakumen and continues mocking her. While Hakumen listens to Tora's words, she becomes upset and attacks Tora because what he is saying is true. One day, Hakumen gazed at human beings and wondered why she was not like them. In the present, Tora speaks about the reason Nagari became bad. He states that Nagari looked up to Ushio and saw how bright he was, then chose to become Ushio's enemy because he could not be like him. Tora likens Hakumen to Nagare, and this pisses Hakumen off. Along the line, Nagare and Hyu appear to Ushio and help him out with Hakumen. Before they head back to the netherworld, they tell Ushio to remain calm, and Ushio heeds their advice. As a result, he yells at Hakumen, telling her to come at him. Hakumen attacks Ushio, but fails to do damage to him. Their battle gets to a point where Ushio uses the beast spear to slice through a part of Hakumen's body. On the other hand, Tora supports Ushio in combat, as he electrocutes Hakumen from the rear. Meanwhile, enemy yokais attacks Sumiko, but Shigure arrives just in time to save her. Other yokais fight off Hakumen's minions to prevent them from disabling the barrier. It gets to a point where Kuro appears and helps Raishin and Kagari, leaving them shocked. Afterward, Hakumen lies weak on the ground after taking much damage from Ushio and Tora. The fact that Ushio and Tora mess with Hakumen's plans makes her hate them the more. As a result, she takes out her eyes and begins to attack Ushio. Although she is blind, she easily finds Ushio and Tora, and then lands a series of attacks on him. While Ushio galls to the ground, he wonders how Hakumen can pinpoint where he is without her sight. It appears that she can do so because Ushio possesses the beast spear. However, Tora smiles at Ushio because he has a plan to use against Hakumen. He uses the beast spear to stab his back, concealing its presence from Hakumen. This alone shocks Ushio, but also prevents Hakumen from finding Ushio. Tora can come up with this idea because he has faced something similar in the past. In the present, Tora suggests stabbing Hakumen with the spear through his body even if it will cost his life. The beast spear is at full power without the red cloth, and Tora wants Ushio to kill Hakumen with it. At first, Ushio does not agree with Tora's plan because it involves Tora's death, but he agrees in the end, shedding tears in the process. Seconds later, Ushio flies with Tora aiming for Hakumen. He intensifies the pressure around the spear, making it come out at the other side of Tora's body. While flying at full speed, Tora endures the pain and guides the beast spear to Hakumen's mouth, tearing the back of her neck in the process. Even at that, Tora summons lightning and electrocutes Hakumen. The lightning causes Hakumen's body to fade into dust. After Hakumen's passing, Ushio wonders if Hakumen ever wanted to become a baby. The tragedy still awaits Ushio because Tora is going to die. Ushio weeps and begs Tora not to die yet, but Tora tells him that it is too late. He then fades away and ascends the atmosphere in spirit form, leaving Ushio weeping like a baby. After Tora's passing, Ushio's transformation takes over. but J-Mei and Giryu appear out of the spear. After that, the beast spear reduces to dust and disappears, leaving Ushio at the mercy of his fate. On the other hand, J-Mei enters Ushio's body with Giryu to prevent Ushio from becoming a beast. This reverses Ushio's state, turning him back to his human form. Later that day, Saya says goodbye to Reiko because she wants to close the gate leading to the netherworld. She says goodbye because she will have to close the gate from the inside, meaning that she will not be able to come out. Omamori opposes her and volunteers to close the gate since she has lived for a long period. While she closes the gate, Saya weeps because she sees her mother too. Elsewhere, Ushio falls from the sky and Shigure catches him, preventing him from hitting the ground. The yokais then say their goodbyes to Sumako and the others because they intend to become stone and support the stone pillar. After they attach themselves to the stone pillar, the earthquake around Japan gets weaker until it stops. On the other hand, some yokais, including the likes of Ryashin, Kagara, and some others, are allowed on land because they are deeply involved with humans. After some months, Ushio displays his appetite one morning and heads off to school. Before he leaves, he takes a long look at the storehouse where he first met Tora, and smiles in the end. Later that night, Hakumen deploys many yokais from the sea to find and destroy the beast spear. On the other hand, Tora and Ushio arrive at a spot where they meet a lady named Hinowa Sekimori. The lady easily destroys a mini yokai sent by Hakume to destroy the beast spear. The way she does it intrigues Ushio, who does nothing but stare at her. The mini yokais are called Hio and serve only to fulfill Hakumen's desires. When Hinowa discovers that Ushio is the one wielding the beast spear, she expresses disappointment because she thinks Ushio lacks the skill to wield such a weapon. She then reveals that she is one of the candidates trained by the sect to possess the spear. Elsewhere, Oyakumi finds out that 4 candidates for the beast spear have disappeared from the temple. She understands the fact that they are upset because a novice like Ushio wields the beast spear they worked so hard to get. She is positive that they all went after Ushio in hopes of getting the beast spear from him. Back at Ushio's location, Hinowa tells Ushio to hand over the spear because he lacks the skill to use it efficiently. She explains Ushio would have avoided lots of bad situations in the past if he knew how to use the beast spear efficiently. Because Ushio feels bad about himself, he leaves the beast spear for Hinowa, who heads off to lure the other Hios to her location. Meanwhile, Tora appears and makes fun of Ushio because he does not possess the spear anymore. He tries to eat Ushio, but stops because Ushio is unresponsive. Along the line, they both notice lots of Hios flying toward Hinowa's direction. Since Ushio does not possess the spear anymore, he thinks about backing down but changes his mind because the beast spear has saved him in countless situations. Moving on, the Hios assemble into a giant yokai to face Hinowa, who now possesses the beast spear. Hinowa looks confident that she can take on the yokai and then tries to activate the spear to boost her success rate. While at it, the spear does not respond to her call, and the Hios seize the opportunity to restrain her. Just before she gets consumed, Ushio arrives at the scene and transforms into his beast self using the spear, destroying all the Hios, restraining Hinowa because of the massive chi flow. After that, he takes the beast spear from Hinowa's hands and launches deadly attacks on the giant yokai. At some point, Ushio gets tossed to the ground, but he recovers almost immediately. Just as he moves to attack the yokai again, he finds out that Hinowa is in danger. Because of that, he aims the spear at Hinowa so it will free her from the Hios. Because he is without the spear, the giant yokai seizes the opportunity to restrain Ushio with its tentacles. Tora arrives at the scene and helps Ushio out of the tentacle. After Ushio is free, he summons the beast spear and uses it to disintegrate the giant yokai into its composite Hios. He then meets up with Hinowa and explains that he needs the beast spear on the quest to find his mum. Surprisingly, Hinowa allows him to take the beast spear, but under the excuse that she needs more time to use the spear. Meanwhile, Tora frowns because he cannot take more of Hinowa's long talk. Finally, Hinowa reveals that other beast spear candidates are on the move to secure the spear from Ushio. The following day, Ushio speaks to the spear, and it replies. Little did he know that Tora was behind him, mimicking a possible voice of the spear to trick Ushio. After some time, Ushio finds out that Tora is behind him, and as such, he punches him severally in the chest. Along the line, a man named Nagare Akiba arrives at the scene with his bike. Ushio gets carried away by the appearance of the bike because it looks cool. After some time, Tora joins him at the bus stop so they can get a ride out of town. Tora notices something off about Nagare and as such flies to his position to confront him. Also, the bus that Ushio is about to get on gets infected with lots of Hios, and he does not notice this. It appears that Nagare is one of the candidates for the beast spear, but he reveals that he is more interested in Tora than the beast spear. He takes out his weapon to fight Tora and their battle begins. Seconds into their battle, Tora encounters issues dealing damage to Nagare while using a lightning attack. His opponent seizes the opportunity to restrain him using an object that will drain his powers. Nagare is curious about the fact that Tora has not devoured Ushio, and he wants to know why. Tora refuses to answer the question and tries to break free, but Nagare aims more objects at him, making him grow weaker. Even at that, Tora detaches himself from his limbs and attacks Nagare. This time, their battle lasts for a few seconds, but Tora wins in the end. After securing victory, he picks up his palms and feet and joins them back to his body. After Nagare regains himself, he looks shocked that Tora spared him, but then Tora proceeds to answer his question. Tora states that he does not eat Ushio because he is never bored with him. After that, he flies away to the bus stop and remembers that he detected Hyos before leaving Ushio. Meanwhile, Ushio notices that Hyos are on the bus, and he slays the ones on the body of the bus driver. After that, the Hyos assume control of the bus and drive recklessly so that Ushio will die from an accident. On the other hand, Nagare joins Tora to find the bus that Ushio is on since it is possessed by Hyos. Soon, they meet up with the bus, and Tora tells Ushio to jump out. Because other human lives are at risk, Ushio refuses to jump out of the bus. This makes Nagare and Tora come up with a plan that involves saving everyone on the bus. At some point, Tora tells Ushio to gather everyone on the bus in the middle and leaves the rest of the work to him. Ushio does as he is told and waits for Tora and Nagare to do their thing. Nagare slices off the front and rear part of the bus, and after that, Tora blows out the passengers into mid-air. While the passengers are suspended, Nagare deploys a barrier to prevent them from damage when they get to the ground. Even at that, Ushio is stuck in the bus because some Hyo restrains him in such a way that renders him immobile. He needs to destroy the bus so that it does not crush the humans that are lying on the path ahead of it. With this in mind, he absorbs power from the Nest Spear and transforms into his other self, freeing himself from the influence of the Hyos. After that, he slices the bus horizontally from the middle and rips it open. Nagare, who underestimated Ushio's abilities, looks shocked when he sees Ushio in beast mode. Seconds later, Ushio stabs the bus in a way that destroys it before reaching the passengers lying on the road. He stares at the passengers and gets mixed feelings because he is the one responsible for putting them in danger. This makes his facial expression change, reflecting a sad mode. He then cheers up a little after conversing with Tora and Nagare. From the way Ushio behaves, Nagare quickly understands why Tora never gets bored with him around. Ushio then joins Nagare on his bike, and they both drive to a different location with Tora flying at their backs. While on the way, Nagare notices some bikers chasing him from behind, and he pulls over to speak to them. It appears that the bikers are from the Kohame sect and are washout candidates for the Beast Spear. Amongst them is Jun, who takes off her helmet and asks Nagare about her brother, Satoru. Satoru is a candidate for the Beast Spear, and he is a man unmatched in the martial and mystic arts. From the looks of things, Nagare has no information regarding Satoru's location. Jun reveals that her brother started acting differently when he heard that Ushio has the Beast Spear. At some point, Tora notices something off about their location as he senses the presence of a yokai. The yokai lands the initial attack, but Ushio quickly defends it. After the smoke clears out, Satoru appears and introduces himself as a candidate for the Beast Spear. He then deploys a yokai at Ushio, who sucks and drains Ushio of his energy. Nagare, Jun, and the others are surprised about Satoru's actions because he doesn't behave like that. He seems more wicked and completely ignores Nagare, who tries to talk him out of his actions. In the meantime, Ushio gets drained to the extent that he nears death. Just before falls unconscious, Tora arrives and frees Ushio from the influence of the yokai. After that, Ushio transforms into his beast form and attacks the yokai, leaving Satoru shocked. Satoru extends his wickedness to his sister as he slaps her to the ground when she tries to talk to him. He then evades the premises when he notices that his body is not acting normally. After he leaves, Tora states that Satoru's head is crawling with a bunch of Hyos. Later that day, Ushio heads off to find a way to get rid of the Hyos in Satoru's head. He speaks to Elder Ungaikyo to help him get in touch with the leader of Yokai Nomura. During his conversation with Naomura, he finds out that the Hyos can only be expelled by killing them inside Satoru's body. This method involves getting into Satoru's body and destroying the Hyo there. The downside is that Ushio might lose his soul when he shapeshifts and enters Satoru's body. Also, he may never regain his human form because he will become a beast forever. Later that evening, Ushio thinks deeply deploy about his situation. Jun, who is present at the time, looks sad because nothing can be done for her brother. Moments later, Satu returns with 2 other yokai and attacks everyone present at the time. Along the line, Jun manages to get through to Satoru, making him gain control of himself momentarily. The fact that he has done terrible things makes him step away from Jun to the extent that he falls off the road and heads for the ground. Before he reaches the ground, Ushio uses the Beast Spear to stop his motion. Minutes after that, his body is laid on the floor and Jun weeps over the fact that he attempted suicide. While Jun weeps, Ushio stares at her and makes up his mind to enter Satoru's body to kill the Hyos. After Ushio makes his intentions known, Nagare opposes his wishes but allows him to have his way. A mirror lies close to Ushio, and Elder Ungaikyo uses it to communicate to Ushio. He then sends Ushio an assistant that will guide him while in Satoru's body. The assistant is a yokai named Izuna. While Izuna makes way for Satoru's body, Tora smacks him to the ground because he wants to speak to Ushio. While conversing with Ushio, he finds out that he has made up his mind to enter Satoru's body, even though Ushio might lose his sanity as a human. He then promises to stick with Ushio and joins him to enter Satoru's body. Just before Ushio enters Satoru's body, he tells Jun to make sure she holds Satoru's body no matter what happens. In a short time, Ushio finds himself sipping through Satoru's internal organs. The experience is new to him, and Izuna leads the way to Satoru's Brian. While on the way, they all encounter Hyos who try to prevent them from advancing upwards. Because of that, Tora and Ushio team up to fight them. The overall effect of battle is felt by Satoru's body, which springs up in the process. Even at that, Jun and the others on the outside manage to hold Satoru's body back to the ground. Moving on, Tora and the others appear restrained by some Hyos. Tora tries to use lightning, but Ushio warns against it because it will affect Satoru. Ushio then sends the beast spear to attack and expel the Hyo restraining him. After the Hyo gets out of Satoru's body, Ushio begins to transform into a beast, but then manages to prevent the transformation from taking over. However, black tentacles appear on his arm at the time he pauses the transformation. Afterward, Tora and the others encounter a bunch of Hyos floating around Sotaru's spinal cord. In the outside world, Satoru stands up and begins to attack Jun and the others with magical powers. Jun resists the attack and then grabs hold of Satoru Bekasue. She does not want to let him go. While holding Satoru, she accidentally supplies his body with magical energy. Ushio notches this and seizes the opportunity to send the Hyos out of Satoru's body. The amount of power he absorbed from the spear causes his transformation into a beast to accelerate momentarily. This makes Izuna question him about why he fights so hard. Although Ushio is losing his human form, he keeps up with the mission and leads the way to Satoru's brain. Just before they get there, a Hyo named Chibakama flies attack them. Chibakama is the general of the Hyo who was previously expelled from Satoru's body. From the way he fights, Ushio notices that he is strong and thinks of ways to defeat him. At some point, Chibakama reveals Hakumen's true intention to destroy everyone in the world. While receiving the info, Shibaka places him under a powerful force field that drains his fighting will. He then attempts a kill strike on Ushio, but Izuna takes his place. While Izuna lies weak, he encourages Ushio to fight so he can stop Jun from crying over her brother. With this in mind, he easily blocks an attack from Chibakama. Initially, Ushio had no beef with Hakumen, but now he does because her intentions will end the world. He then engages in brutal combat with Chibakama since he is done recovering his strength. In the meantime, Izuna tells Tora that there is a way to defeat Chibakama. Minutes later, Tora tells Jun to do as he says if she wants to save Satoru. She wants her to concentrate her will and send it through Satoru's eyes so they can defeat the last Hyo. She agrees and then proceeds to perform the ritual. In the meantime, Tora joins Ushio in battle against Chibakama while Izuna prevents the enemy from sipping through an organ. Because Izuna's life is at risk, Ushio leaves Tora and offers the remaining part of his soul to the beast spear, powering him up in the process. He flies heading for Izuna, and after he stabs Chibakama, he turns into stone and disintegrates. In split seconds, Jun's will gets into Satoru's body, while Ushio grabs hold of Izuna to prevent him from dying. Minutes later, Satoru regains consciousness and appears normal. He hugs his sister, Jun, and appreciates her for her efforts in saving her. He then finds out that Tora and the others who were in his body have not returned. This info makes him emotional because they risked their lives to save him. In the process, he weeps and Tora appears alongside Ushio and Izuna from a teardrop. Minutes later, Ushio loses control of his body and begins to transform into a true beast, leaving Nagare and the others present terrified. While Ushio transforms into a beast, Tora looks shocked because he never expected him to morph soon. In a short while, Ushio becomes a true beast and has a scary look on his face. Elsewhere, Jiemei, the founder of the Kohame sect, appears to Oyakume and some elders. Her presence shocks the elders because she is in spirit form. She informs Oyakume that Ushio is about to become a beast. This info sends chills down Nagira's spine and the rest of the elders, because they never expected to hear such. Because no human has ever returned from being a beast, she advises Oyakume to use Ushio's mother's comb to help revert Ushio to normal. After that, she disappears to find the girls who can use the comb to save Ushio. After she leaves, Shigure arrives at the sect, and it looks as if he has a plan. Moving on, Jiemei appears to the girls that Ushio has saved in the past, ranging from Nakamura down to Yu. and even Saya, whom he saved recently. She tells them individually that Ushio has lost his mind to the beast spear because he used its power to save many people. She then speaks of the part where the girls involved will have to comb his hair with a special comb to revert him to normal. The girls involved are selected because they have a karmic link with Ushio, and they are the only ones who can save him. After they get this info from Mie, they accept to help Ushio. Meanwhile, Ushio attacks Tora, Nagara, and the rest of the people present at his location. After that, he jumps heading for the woods. Later that day, Shigure arrives at the airport with a chopper to pick up the girls that will save Ushio. At first, Yu and Saya are in attendance, but in a short while, Nakamura, Inoue, and Reiko joins. Shigure, upon seeing them, appreciates them because they are willing to save his son. Elsewhere, Nagara, Satoru, and Jun meet up with Hinoa at Otore Temple. There, Hinoa speaks of a cave that the bearer of the beast spear should not enter, adding that the only one qualified to enter is the true bearer of the spear, who can end everything. Meanwhile, Ushio runs wild heading for the cave. On his way, he encounters a bunch of yokais but slays them mercilessly. His soul lies trapped in his mind, suffering excruciating pain as he watches what his mindless body is doing against his wishes. A lady carrying a baby stands a few meters from his path. He sees this and manages to jump over them to prevent their death. Conversely, Hakumen detects that Ushio is on the move, and because of that, she deploys all Hio to attack and destroy Ushio with the spear. All Hios fly away following Ishkaumen's wishes, and their presence in the skies sacres humans who see them. As Ushio lies stuck in his mind, he gradually loses consciousness, but sees a man violently making the beast spear. The way the man needs the iron shocks him, because he sees him pour fire from his mouth. Later that evening, Shigure arrives with the girls and meets with Nagara and the other warriors from the sect. While speaking to the warriors, he senses that Hios are flying towards their location, and then tells them to cast a barrier around their mountain to prevent the Hios from getting in. After the briefing, Nagara and the others leave to set the barrier while Shigure addresses the girls on how they will save Ushio. He leaves after he is done to join the others in setting up the barrier. All that is left is for Tora to get the comb from Ushio, and he proceeds to do so. He flies with Izuna chasing Ushio from the back. In the end, Izuna manages to get the comb from Ushio, fulfilling the first phase of the plan. Meanwhile, Nakamura is pissed about the fact that Ushio left town without telling her. She argues that if Ushippo had confided in him, he would have not turned into a monster. She weeps because of Ushio's condition because she cares deeply about him. In a short time, the Hios arrive, but Nagara and the others set up the barrier to prevent them from getting in. Also, Tora reaches Nakamura's position, awaiting Ushio's arrival. After Ushio was in sight, the girls looked shocked because of what he turned into. Even at that, Reiko volunteers to comb Ushio's hair first, and she gets the comb from Izuna. She walks fearlessly towards Ushio and manages to comb his hair after taking a nasty punch from him. After she combs Ushio's hair, she sees that their plan is working, but Ushio still runs heading for the cave. Since Saya lies in his path, Nakamura tries to defend her from taking damage from Ushio. As a result, she gets knocked to the ground, but Saya is confirmed unharmed. While Ushio heads to the cave, Tora attacks him but fails to restrain him, but Hinoa seizes the opportunity to cast a strong barrier around Ushio that restricts his movements. She does this to hold Ushio in place so that the next person can come and comb his hair. This time Saya takes the comb and walks heading for Ushio. The fact that she is the only one who can walk in Hinoa's barrier makes her take the opportunity to comb Ushio's hair. She gets through the barrier and manages to comb Ushio's hair, but it does not stop him from acting violently. Instead, he breaks through the barrier to see what stands in his way. The mere sight of the comb triggers him to attack Inoue, who is holding it at the time. Before he gets to her, Tora arrives and strikes him with a large lightning bolt. The bolt destroys the bridge, but Tora saves Inoue and Saya from Ushio's reach. Meanwhile, Hinoa is left at the mercy of Ushio, but Jun arrives and restrains Ushio before he can hurt Hinoa. While Ushio stands restrained by a barrier, Yu volunteers to comb Ushio's hair even as the connecting bridge is partially destroyed. She prepares herself for the task and looks confident that she will be successful. She runs towards Ushio, who is restrained by a barrier, and manages to comb his hair as the barrier wears out. As a result, Ushio reverts to himself briefly, but his beast self takes over again. After he loses his mind once again, he jumps away from his position heading for the woods. At this point, it is left to Inoue and Nakamura to comb Ushio's hair so that he will go back to normal. In the meantime, Shigure and the others from the sect manage to hold up their barriers respectively. It gets to a point where more Hios press on the barrier, dropping more weight on the warriors. One of them slacks off, allowing some Hios to pass through the barrier, but Satoru uses a yokai under his control to eliminate them. He then intensifies his magical output to strengthen the barrier so that the Hios don't make it through. Afterward, Mei appears to Nakamura and the others and tells them to hurry. Tora follows her lead, carrying Inoue and the others with him. It appears that they are looking for Ushio, who is headed for the cave. While in flight, Jaime states that Ushio is drawn to the cave because a piece of Hakume no Mona is there. In a short time, they all get in front of the cave, awaiting Ushio's arrival. Following that, Inoue decides to enter the cave, and Tora gets mixed feelings about it. He believes that she is going to die, and will lose the opportunity to eat her, as he has always desired. Because of that, he chases after Inoue, but stops after he sees Ushio. Upon seeing him, he freaks out and aims a lightning bolt toward him, but it gets redirected. At this point, Ushio seizes the opportunity to stab Inoue, but he experiences difficulties doing so. This is because Inoue used the comb to block his attack. The resultant force from the comb and the spear sets Inoue off a cliff. Nakamura runs to save her as she hangs onto a rock. On the other hand, Inoue tries to maintain contact with the rock, but she fails at some point. While she falls to the ground, Tora arrives at her position and saves her. He then uses her as bait to lure Ushio to their position so that Inoue can comb his hair. Meanwhile, Shigure fails to maintain the barrier, and as such, he runs off to assume an attacking position. Back at the cave's entrance, Tora trash talks Ushio to trigger him. He is pissed over the fact that Ushio is human, but is now condemned to kill indiscriminately. He proceeds with the trash talking up to the point where Ushio stabs him in the chest. It seems this was his plan all along, and Inoue seizes the opportunity to comb Ushio's hair. After that, Inoue hands the comb over to Nakamura because she is the next person. Meanwhile, Satoru and Nagara join Shigure in the woods to set a barrier around Ushio and the others. As they get surrounded by a bunch of Hyos, Hyu arrives at the scene and casts a barrier to prevent the Hyos from getting in. Now, Nakamura has a short time to comb Ushio's hair, because the barrier is going to hold for 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Ushio gradually loses himself as he suffers excruciating pain while being lost in his own body. He sees the blacksmith responsible for the spear raining curses on him. Along the line, Jaime appears and tells the blacksmith to stop sacrificing souls in his pursuit of Hakumen. In the present, Nakamura weeps as she walks to meet Ushio and comb his hair. She can do this because Ushio's mind is gradually coming back. Even after she combs Ushio's hair, Ushio desires to enter the cave. This makes Nakamura spear him off the cliff in his attempt to get into the cave. Tora sees this and yells over the fact that Ushio is going to die. Before Ushio reaches the ground, the barrier wears off, allowing the Hyos access to Shigure and the others. Surprisingly, Ushio arrives and lands a nasty strike on the Hyos that eliminates lots of them in a single sweep. This alone leaves Tora and the others shocked because they thought he was dead. Even at that, Tora joins Ushio to eliminate the Hyos. They both land a series of calculated attacks and defeat the Hyos in the end. The amount of energy Ushio expends in battle makes him fall unconscious after dealing with the Hyos, but the girls are happy that he is human again. After Ushio regains consciousness, he heads for the cave and Tora joins him. For some reason, Nakamura looks confident that Ushio will make it back to her after his business in the cave. Both Tora and Ushio arrive millimeters in front of the cave prepared to go in and face what lies within. Later that night, Ushio and Tora walk in the cave up to the point where they see a temple. As they arrive in front of the temple, the beast spear triggers Ushio to transform into his beast self. This is because a piece of Hakumen lies within the temple, and the spear is drawn to it. When they get into the temple, they both see a piece of Hakumen's body inside. It attacks Ushio briefly, and he gets scared because it is meant to be dead, or at least immobile. Seconds later, a yokai named Takisaka arrives at the scene via a portal. Takisaka intends to answer all of Ushio's questions relating to Hakumen and his mother. After a brief history lesson about Hakumen and Jaime, he leads the way back in time through a portal. While Ushio travels through the portal, he looks shocked because this is his first time travel experience. In a short while, they all arrive in the past way before the beast spear was created. For this reason, Ushio is without the beast spear, because it has not been created yet. Also, their current location is China's capital, about 2200 years in the past. After Taisaka reveals this to Ushio and Tora, he disappears, telling Ushio that he will get him when the time comes. Soon, both parties fall from the sky and land on the ground. Upon getting up, they both see a girl that looks exactly like Inoue. Even at that, Ushio takes a closer look at her and realizes that she is Jaime. He then introduces himself to Jaime, and from the way he speaks, Jaime looks relieved because he is not a yokai. Her suspicion is because Ushio fell from the sky out of nowhere. They both converse for a short while, and after some time, Jaime introduces herself to Ushio, spelling her name correctly in the sand. On the other hand, Tora hates the feeling he gets from being around the premises. He suspects the presence of pure evil from the miasma exuding all over the place. He then takes a look at the walls and senses an even greater evil lying behind them. Moments later, Yokais proceeds out of nowhere, heading to attack some civilians passing the scene. Before they get to them, Tora attacks the yokai, saving the civilians in the process. Ushio holds Jaime by her hands to protect her, but Tora warns him not to get distracted. Because of this, Ushio takes up a large stone to assist Tora in defeating a yokai. In the end, they both come out successful, but Tora is seen with a temper. His anger stems from the fact the yokais were not worthy of his punch or lightning strike. Because J-Mei cannot see Tora, she assumes that Ushio single-handedly took out the yokais and calls him an immortal mountain sage. She then drags Ushio to her home, leaving Tora behind. At sunset, Ushio and Tora sit in J-Mei's house with her parents. J-Mei's parents appreciate Ushio for saving their daughter. At some point, J-Mei's mother begins to talk about Hakumen, who destroyed some lands about 500 years ago. It appears that the king of China saw Hakumen in the form of a woman at that time. For that reason, he ordered that all his concubines be put to death. One day, the king gives an order to his people to make a weapon that could kill Hakumen. Anyone who can make such a weapon will be praised with the priest title. In the present, J-Mei explains that her father, who is a swordsmith, tries every day to forge a holy sword. In a short while, J-Mei's dad arrives at the house and joins them for dinner. Also, J-Mei speaks about her brother, Jiryu, and Ushio looks shocked. It appears that Jiryu went off to learn how to forge a strong sword and will be back soon. The following morning, Ushio wakes Yu and takes note of the fact that Jiryu and his father are working on the weapon. J-Mei arrives and then speaks about a time when her daily used to live in the palace gates. It appears that her family got banished from the kingdom and her father is trying to forge the sword to buy his way back into the kingdom. Moments later, Jiryu's father heads out of the workshop looking frustrated. His frustration stems from the fact that his attempt to make the holy weapon failed. On the other hand, Jiryu speaks of another way to make the sword, but this time, it involves dark magic. Before he can reveal the details, his mother cuts her hair and offers it to his dad as a binding agent for the weapon. 4 days later, Jiryu and his father manage to perfect the holy weapon. As a result, Jiryu's dad appears before the king alongside other swordsmiths holding variants of the holy weapon. Unfortunately, Hakumen takes control of the maidens present at the scene and reveals herself. As a result, the king freaks out because he is frightened by her. The palace guards assume attacking positions to fight Hakumen, but they fail as Hakumen takes her true form and slays them. Even at that, the swordsmiths take up their weapons to fight Hakumen, but they fail. Amongst the dead is Giryu's father, and his passing shocks Ushio. Seconds later, Hakumen deploys a large energy attack that kills J-Mei's mother. Her passing upsets Ushio, as he is only able to save J-Mei from death. As a result, he takes up a spear aiming to fight Hakumen, but he freezes when he gets in front of her. Ushio freezes because he is under the influence of Hakumen's powers. Hakumen summons another blast heading for Ushio, but Tora arrives and saves him from imminent death. Meanwhile, Ushio kneels on the ground as tears build up in his eyes. The damage that Hakumen causes spreads around the kingdom, engulfing a large portion of it in flames. Later that evening, Ushio watches J-Mei sleep and looks upset because there is nothing he can do against Hakumen. Soon, J-Mei regains consciousness, only to find out that her parents are dead. After that, Ushio leaves the house and hears a noise coming from the workshop. Upon getting in, he finds Jiryu punching his hands to bits. Jiryu is pissed about the fact that he has lost everything, but Ushio encourages him that it is not over. After Jiryu gets himself together, he speaks of another way to create the weapon that will kill Hakumen. This method involves black magic, and someone he loves will have to die for the weapon to be perfected. The fact that Jiryu will have to lose someone he loves to make the weapon discourages him, because J-Mei is the only one he has left. Shockingly, J-Mei, who heard everything he said earlier, stands on top of the furnace. She intends to sacrifice herself, so her brother will be able to make the weapon. Before Ushio and Jiryu can get to her, she jumps inside the funnel and melts to bits. After her passing, Jiryu mourns for a while, but gets up and begins to make the weapon so that his sister's death will not be in vain. While at it, he gives off a weird smile because he wants his sister to die so he can make the weapon. Blood drips from his head, and the way he speaks Sakura's Ushio. This is because Jiryu has the same face he had when Ushio saw him in his mind. Jiryu calls himself an Oni because of his bitter desires, but proceeds to make the weapon. As he beats the iron with all of his strength, Ushio watches him and gets mixed feelings. It gets to a point where Ushio tries to stop Jiryu from making the spear, but Tora prevents him from doing so. Tora then advises Ushio to watch Jiryu till the end, because that is the only thing he can do. At some point, Jiryu merges with the spear and becomes one with it. In the end, the beast spear is formed bearing Ushio's name on it. Ushio looks shocked upon seeing the spear as J-Mei is the head while Jiryu is the shaft of the spear. In a short while, Tora tries to destroy the spear, but it flies away from his reach. After that, J-Mei appears to them in spirit form and speaks to Ushio about his mother. Takisaka appears too and leads the way forward in time. While traveling through the portal, J-Mei explains what happened after the beast spear was created. She states that it traveled the land searching for Hakumen. but started killing yokai indiscriminately when it didn't find her. At that time, the leader of Eastern yokai opposed the spear with some other yokais. As a result, some of them became fine red cloth that acted as a charm to seal it. The spear was then bound to a specific spot in the mountains until a man came and took it. Moving on, J-Mei speaks about a time when she learned that Hakumen had arrived in Japan. At that time, she reincarnated into a human named Yuki. Yuki opposed Hakumen at that time because she sought to destroy the land. A battle was fought where humans and yokais teamed up against Hakumen, but they failed as Hakumen managed to retreat. Unfortunately, a true danger lies where Hakumen retreated to. The place Hakumen merged with is a key pillar holding the entire nation. If Yuki tried to destroy Hakumen at that time, the whole nation would be destroyed, and as a result, she mounted a barrier around the place, preventing the yokais from getting there. It is for this reason that the yokais hated her. After Ushio hears this, he asks about his mother's involvement, and then J-Mei explains that she met his mother to take up the duty of enforcing the barrier after the previous two people died. Ushio's mother, Sumako Aotsuki, took up that responsibility, and in the present, she sits within the barrier enforcing it. After Tora hears this, he gets curious and questions J-Mei about how Ushio was born, since she has been within the barrier the whole time. J-Mei then replies stating that she let Sumako out for some time after Sumako had a dream where she gave birth to Ushio, who will wield the beast spear. Ushio, upon hearing this, looks shocked over the fact that he is the one his mother spoke of in her dreams. In a short time, they arrive at their current time, and Takisaka leaves with J-Mei, promising to see Ushio on the day of his last battle against Hakumen. Seconds later, the beast spear appears, and he takes it up, ready to continue his assigned journey. Elsewhere, a stray woman walks in search of the red cloth that binds the beast spear. While at it, she slays a bunch of yokais in her way. After that, she finds out that the beast spear is in Japan. After killing all the yokias, she boasts about being stronger than the beast spear. In today's time, Ushio gets to school after a long time of being out of town. Ushio's presence in school excites his classmates because they have missed him. Later that day, Ushio heads out of school with Nakamura, Inoue, and Tora. On the way, he says a kid from getting knocked off by a moving vehicle. The boy in question is Kiryu, and he looks more concerned about the ant he was playing with. Surprisingly, Kiryu knows Ushio's name and addresses him as a big bro. When Ushio gets home, Tora converses with him about the kid from earlier. He states that Kiryu had the same scent as the beast spear, and after some time, he detects Kiryu's presence in the house. A yokai under Kiryu's control attacks Tora, but inflicts no damage at first. After Ushio gets out of the house, he sees Kiryu and the yokai queen. Kiryu introduces himself formally and claims to be the inheritor of the beast spear. Elsewhere, Oyakumi finds out that Ushio is in town. She wishes to see him, but the way she says this makes Nagira think that she wants to die soon. While in the meeting, an evil Maisume travels around the area, causing Shigure and the others to go outside. On getting outside, a portal opens and a monster claiming to be a piece of Hakumen comes out. At this point, lots of warriors from the Kohamai sect assume attacking positions to defend their temple. Back at the Fujie temple, Kiryu flaunts his weapon and yokai to Ushio, telling him that they are stronger than what he possesses. At some point, Queen mocks Tora, causing him to get upset. As he gets fueled in rage, he attacks Queen and they both get into a nasty battle, but it ends after some minutes as Shigure arrives on a chopper. Shigure asks Ushio for help because he possesses the beast spear. After Ushio learns that the sect is under attack, he agrees to hop on the chopper and Kiryu joins him. Back at the Kohame sect, the warriors present manage to hold off their enemy up to the point where they cast a restraining spell on it. Soon, Ushio arrives with his father, and Nagira tells Shigure to take Ushio to Oyakumi. While on the way to see Oyakumi, Shigure gives a brief history lesson about the person they are going to meet. On getting to Oyakume's chambers, Shigure leaves, leaving Ushio alone with the Oyakume. Oyakumi's time with Ushio makes her remember the time she was a lot younger. At that time, she had some kids who were always playing around her. One day, J-Mei appeared to her, revealing the responsibility of enforcing the barrier around Hakumen. In the present, Oyakumen looks happy because she is with Ushio, the person who will wield the beast spear. After some time, their meeting comes to an end, and Ushio heads out to join the battle against the monster. Meanwhile, Kiryu watches all that goes down from a distance and then sends Queen to go play with Tora. Also, Ushio is shown running out of the temple to face the monster. He powers up and attacks the monster but fails to deal damage to it. At some point, the beast attempts a kill strike on Ushio, but Oyakumi blocks the attack with her magic. The Oyakume, aka Mikado Hizaki, stands against the monster and looks confident she can defeat it. The way she releases chi gives off the impression that she wants to die. In the end, she defeats the monster, turning it to stone, but falls weak to the ground. Ushio, upon seeing this, runs toward her and holds, looking emotional. Meanwhile, Kiryu seizes the opportunity to slay the remains of the monster, to give the impression that his weapon is superior to Ushio's. Even at that, Ushio holds Hizaki in his arms, and tears roll down his eyes. As life slips away from Hizaki, she tells Ushio that he cannot defeat Hakumen by his power alone. She dies after saying that the sect must all work together. After her passing, Kiryu arrives at the scene and takes credit for killing the monster. He then uses the opportunity to tell the warriors and elders that the Bison Spear is irrelevant, adding that he will defeat Hakumen with his weapon. Nagara acknowledges his presence, and then tells him to follow him. Later that night, Kiryu converses with the stray woman from earlier. He tells her about his success in making the sect believe that they don't need the Beast Spear anymore. He addresses the woman as his mother, but then receives a new objective from her, which is to destroy the Beast Spear. The following morning, Ushio blames himself for Oyakume's death because he is weak. While drowning in regret, Tora attacks him because he wants to eat him. While at it, Tora notices that Ushio is not putting up a fight, and as such, he gets a clean slice off Ushio's back and licks off the blood. This alone triggers Ushio to transform into his beast form and attack Tora. Even at that, Tora burns through his attack and wins the battle in the process. He then mocks Ushio for being weak and then flies off heading for the city. At the sect, Nagara tells Shigure that other members of the sect are on par with Kiryu, even as it was Oyakume's power that defeated the previous monster. At sunset, Ushio stands alone in front of the Fugem temple, drowning in the thought of getting stronger. While at it, Kiryu arrives with a bunch of monks from the sect who place Ushio under a barrier. Kiryu's objective is to take the spear from Ushio and destroy it. After Ushio learns of this, he looks shocked and resists Kiryu when he tries to take the spear even as he is under an intense barrier. Because of this, the monks attack Ushio, but they get defeated in numbers. Kiryu, on the other hand, takes out a red fine cloth and uses it to bind the beast spear, preventing Ushio from using it. The monks use the opportunity to restrain Ushio with a strong barrier, rendering him immobile. Later that evening, Hinawa arrives at the Fugen temple only to meet Ushio, restrained by a barrier. She uses her powers to dissolve the barrier, and then mocks Ushio about being helpless without the spear. In a short while, Tora arrives at the temple with Nagara and finds out that Kiryu was there earlier. He then heads off with Nagara to find him. Meanwhile, Ushio arrives at the sect bearing news that the beast spear was taken from him. This news clarifies Nagira's suspicion of the sect splitting up. In seconds, Ushio arrives in the room where Nagira and other members of the sect are present. He begs them for help to find the spear because of what it means to him. About 16 years ago, a man named Inas, who became a high-level master in the sect, left behind his research that has to do with fighting implements. At that time, he intended to create an implement that would support the beast spear, but over the years he grew dark and was exiled from the sect. In the present, Nagira narrates this story to Ushio and Hinoa. He then proceeds to say that Ines reappeared at the sect about 2 years ago with a child named Kiryu, possessing outstanding mystic power and wielding a strange weapon. At that time, the sect made Kiryu a candidate of the Beast Spear when they learned of his power, but in real time, Nagara expresses regret for such decisions. His regret stems from the fact that the sect acted recklessly to enlist Kiryu as a candidate for the spear. Meanwhile, Tora and Nagara arrive at the location early at dawn. Upon getting into the house, they encounter a bunch of yokai slay them mercilessly and proceed to higher ground. After some time, Ushio arrives at the location with Hinawa, with the sole aim of finding Kiryu. Meanwhile, Tora and Nagara observe a room where weapons similar to Kiryu's are stored. Tora, upon seeing these weapons, fumes upset because none of them can deal damage on him, let alone Hakumen, who is stronger. On the other hand, Nagara states that the weapon Kiryu wields carries immense power, but he wonders why Kiryu's weapon is special. One thing leads to another, and Tora punches through a wall where Ines's remains lie on a chair. In the meantime, Ushio and Hinoa arrive at a higher floor in the house. They both find a diary where Inezi takes a record of his attempt to create Kiryu's weapon. After Hinoa reads a few pages of the book, she finds out that Inaze was able to create an artificial life form named Queen. Ushio takes a look at the book too, and the term materia catches their attention. At the time when Inaze was working on his experiment to create the weapon and the Sade materia, a woman named Tawako arrived at his lab. Tawako is the stray woman from earlier, and the same woman whom Kiryu calls mother. Tawako's contribution to Inaze's experiment accelerates it to the point where Kiryu's weapon is created. From there, he began mass-producing duplicates of the weapon. One day, Inaz questions Tawako on why she is lending him so much power, and she replies by stating that Hakumen is dangerous. It appears that she is on par with defeating Hakumen, but states that the beast spear might not be enough to do the job. She then states that Inaz should destroy the spear so that the sect will see reason to believe that the beast spear is not enough to defeat Hakumen. Her way of destroying the spear involves wrapping the spear around its binding material and dipping it in a concrete box filled with molten lead and mercury. In the present, Hinoa and Ushio Ushio possessed this knowledge after reading the book, and as such, they run to prevent the spear from being destroyed. On their way, they encounter Nagara and Tora fighting a large monster at the time. From Nagara's observation, he reveals that the monster is guarding the room with the inscription Kiryu on it. The monster attacks and Tora saves Ushio from harm, even though he is pissed at Ushio. On the other hand, Hinoa erects a barrier to prevent the monster from moving, and she tells Ushio to read Inaze, his diary, to find out the secret of the Kiryu room. Back in the past, the materia that Inaze wanted to make was Kiryu who would wield the weapon that he created. One day, Tawako came to his lab, offering him a bay that she stole. This alone sacres Inase, and he watches as Tawako makes the baby into the materia. In the end, the experiment was successful, but Inase was terrified when he saw the look in Tawako's eyes. In the present, Kiryu stands in a gathering of monks from the sect. He prepares to destroy the best spear by following the method Tawako stated in the past. Meanwhile, Hinoa and Nagara tell Ushio to leave them and go get the spear. At first, Ushio hesitates because Hinaoa and Nagara are holding off the monster, but he leaves because the spear is more important. While on the way to get the spear, Ushio and Tora encounter Queen on the way. Queen wishes to settle scores with Tora, but Ushio runs ahead to land the first attack, but fails. Tora then engages in physical combat with Queen, but gets impaled by multiple spikes, summoned by Queen. At this point, Ushio has had enough, and he takes up a stone to help Tora even as he is without the beast spear. Queen mocks Tora, making Tora get pissed even as he lies impaled by spikes. At some point, he frees himself from the spikes and images in a nasty battle with Queen. This time, Tora's attacks are more intense because Queen underestimated him in the past. Ushio, who watches their battle, heads off after some time to go get the spear. When he arrives at Kiryu's location, he notices that the monks have the same weapon as Kiryu. Also, the beast spear is suspended in the air over a molten mixture of mercury and lead. Ushio begs Kiryu to stop what he is doing, but he does not listen. Because Kiryu declines his request, he runs to take the spear himself, but Queen prevents him. Furthermore, Tawako plays the violin as she pays tribute to the beast spear's passing. After she is done playing the violin, she lowers the spear into the molten metallic mixture, and Ushio runs to catch the spear from getting lost forever. He fails because the spear gets into the concrete container before he gets to it. Even at that, Ushio tries to summon the spear, but he gets no response. Also, Tawako's presence shocks the monks because Kiryu never told them about her. Shiguri, who sits in the shadows, realizes that everything that happened recently was a plot by Hakumen. He exposes Tawako by aiming a weapon at her that makes her reveal her true form. From the looks of things, Tawako is a servant of Hakumen. When she takes her true form, the monks look shocked, including Kiryu and Ushio. The weapons that were distributed to the monks earlier stand no chance against her because she easily destroys them. The fact that Tawako has been lying to Kiryu since his childhood plunges him to tears, but Tawako shows no mercy and attacks him. Although the beast spear is gone, Ushio still tries to summon it, but Rawako knocks him away. Ushio recovers on top of the hardened mixture and tries to call out the spear again. He acknowledges that all that happened recently is his fault, and cries out to Jiryu for help. From the land of the dead, Jiryu summons his essence to Ushio and communicates with him. Jiryu questions Ushio if he is willing to fight alongside him even if it will cost his soul, because Ushio does not want to lose anyone he agrees to bond with the spear again. As such, he begins to transform, but Tawako interferes by attacking him. After Ushio recovers, he summons the beast spear, and it breaks through the concrete, leaving Tawako shocked. After Ushio gets hold of the spear, he uses it to attack Tawako, setting her in a critical condition. The downside is that the yokai Hinoa and Nagare were fighting arrive at the scene holding Ushio's friends as hostages. The monster intends to kill Hinoa, and Nagare under Tawako's wishes. On the other hand, Tawako states that everything will end if Ushio gives up the beast spear and lets himself get killed. Ushio powers down momentarily and then pinpoints his strength to a single part of the spear and uses it to destroy the yokai in a single attack. After that, Tawako cries out for help and tries to brainwash Kiryu into helping her. She succeeds, and Kiryu begins to attack Ushio. While Ushio fights with Kiryu, Tawako tries to escape, but fails because there is a barrier around the area. The effects of the barrier push her to the ground, and she becomes more weak. Ushio yells at Kiryu while in combat, telling him that Tawako is not his mother. Because of that, Kiryu uses his weapon to stab Tawako in the abdomen. As Tawako falls weak to the ground, Kiryu asks her if she was lying to him in the past, but she lies again, stating that she loves Kiryu. Kiryu sheds tears because Tawako betrayed him once again. Tawako's body burns up, and this pushes Kiryu over to the edge as he begins to blame Tawako's death on everyone present at the scene. In the end, Ushio calms him down and makes him realize that Tawako was never his mother. Minutes later, he heads off into the woods with Queen to find his path. At sunset, Nagari smiles over the fact that Tora has joined Ushio in his travels after saying that he had given up on him earlier. After some days, Ushio gets intense stomach pain because of the food he ate the previous day. On the other hand, Tora leaves the house because he cannot keep up with Ushio's diarrhea problem. While Tora flies off, he thinks about Inui and craves to eat her someday. Later that morning, a man sits scared in front of two yokais. After he fails to answer their question, one of the yokais eats up his brain, killing him in the process. In the meantime, Nakamura spends time with Inoue at Inui's house. After some time, Nakamura departs for Ushio's house because she hears that he has stomach issues. When Nakamura leaves, Tora reveals himself to Inoue while she is going through her mail. While checking her mailbox, she sees a letter inviting her to a dinner party. Inoue is excited that she gets to go out and runs off to get ready. Meanwhile, Tora notices that the letter carries a yokai's scent. While Inoue prepares to go out, Tora warns her not to go, but she declines. Because of that, Tora shapeshifts into Inoue after she leaves the house. Later that day, Tora uses the address on the letter to find out where Inoue went to. Because of his looks, some guys are drawn to him, but he scares them off with his huge fangs. In the end, he gets Inoue's location and flies off to find her there. Back at the skyscraper, Inoue sits in the same room as the human who died earlier. Two yokais stand a bit distant from her and ask her the same question they asked the humans in the past. Meanwhile, Tora flies to the building and sees her from the window. Moving on, Inoue encounters difficulties answering the question, and as a result, Nodoka proceeds to eat her brain. At this point, Inoue is terrified, but Tora arrives and saves her from imminent death. He then assumes his true form and assumes an attacking position to fight off Nodoka and the Taira, other yokai. Even at that, Taira speaks about a time when he was buried at an execution site. At that time, while he was on the ground with Nodoka, he watched as some humans died with smiles on their faces. According to him, those humans had no regret. It made him question why humans face death in a variety of ways. Also, Taira reveals that he took the form of a human, asking humans the question directly. After Tora hears this, he gets pissed and lands a nasty attack on both of them, eliminating them in the process. The fact that Tora saved Inoue makes her hug him and appreciate him. Seconds later, Tora descends with Inui to a lower floor to check if she is hurt. After the flight, he notches a blood droplet on Inoue's hand and licks it off. The pleasure that he gets from licking off the blood intensifies his urge to eat Inoue. He gets knocked back into reality after Inoue states that she would love to marry Ushio. One thing leads to another, and Inoue drags Tora into a performing marriage ritual with her. Tora declines to answer the last vow, but then gets attacked by Nodoka and Taira. It appears taut they did not die from Tora's previous strike. The yokais want Inoue to answer their question, but Tora seeks to eliminate them. Air battle destroys a part of the building, but Tora hides in a box with Inoue. Minutes later, Nodoka notices two Inoues running out of the box. It appears that Tora shapeshifted into Inoue again to split Taira up with Nodoka. The version of Inoue that Taira goes after is Tora, and he gets attacked by Tora after he repeats the question. Meanwhile, Nodoka restrains Inoue, hoping to eat her brain. Seconds later, Tora arrives at the scene with Taira's burnt body. Tora uses his powers to electrocute the remains of Taira, setting a human in a dangerous position. All that stands between the human and death is a rock that he hangs onto. Inoue walks over to him to help him get back up, but in the process, Nodoka grabs hold of her and tries to make her answer his question. This alone pisses Tora off because he cannot save Inoue in her current situation. Inoue then gets creative and jumps off the platform, causing Nodoka to fall with her. While in midair, Tora slays Nodoka and catches Inoue before she reaches the ground. Later that evening, Tora drops Inoue at the Fugen Temple. After Ushio sees her, he finds out that her outfit is made from Tora's fur and freaks out. In the end, Tora flies away after acknowledging the marriage vow that Inoue made with him. He claims that he is doing it so he can eat Inoue in the future. The following day, Ushio gets into a nasty battle with Tora because Tora wants to have him as breakfast. Their battle ends as Nakamura comes in between them. It appears that Ushio is late for school, and Nakamura scolds him for this reason. Later that day, Ushio walks with Nakamura within the school premises. While at it, they both get spied on by a group of scientists taking their physical readings from a vehicle. The scientists are aware of the beast spear that Ushio wields and intends to secure Nakamura and Ushio to their facility. That afternoon, Ushio leaves school with Nakamura, and on the way, they get surrounded by some men in suits. The fact that one of them touches Nakamura makes Ushio go nuts and attack them. The way Ushio fights impresses Helena, the leader of the scientists, because he gives off magnificent readings while maintaining his human form. At some point, the men use tranquilizers to make Ushio fall weak to the ground. Later that afternoon, Atsuzawa meets up with Shigure at an office. They both discuss briefly the time when Ushio helped Atsuzawa on a flight about weeks ago. At this point, Atsuzawa is the head of a special unit, JSDF, with the sole aim of dealing with yokai-related incidents. Moving on, the conversation between Atsuzawa and Shigure, another institute called HAMMR. According to Atsuzawa, the institute has gone rogue, and the way he says this signifies that it is something serious. Elsewhere, Nakamura tries to run away from the men in suits, but they catch up to her. At some point, Tora intervenes because he is worried about Ushio. Meanwhile, Ushio regains consciousness to see Helena and some other two scientists. They are en route to the lab, and Ushio is strapped to a hospital bed. In the meantime, Tora defeats the men who tried to restrain Nakamura. After he is done, he realizes that Ushio got himself captured. While he converses with Nakamura, 4 vehicles surround him, pulling out a large sonic machine. The machines emit strong vibrational energy that Tora could not take. As a result, he falls unconscious to the ground. Also, Ushio gets threatened by the scientists to do as they say because they have Nakamura and Tora. Later that day, Tora and Nakamura get transported to the HAMMR Institute. After Tora is taken off a vehicle, he causes a small explosion using his hair to distract the guards. He then creates a duplicate of Nakamura to fool the guards, and then uses his powers to set Nakamura free. It appears that before Nakamura ran off to find Ushio, Tora gave her his hair and told her to pull it when she found him. It appears that Tora let himself get captured for this reason. Moments later, Nakamura sneaks into a room in her search for Ushio. On getting into the room, she sees other yokais who were experimented on and feels bad for them. She then sees another yokai in the form of a boy and tries to talk to him. At first, the boy declines because Nakamura is human, but then agrees to speak to her after he gets chocolate from her. Meanwhile, the boy reveals that the facility is used to experiment with yokai. Nakamura, upon hearing this, fumes hot and begins to unplug the girl boy, the system. She intends to get him out of there alongside Ushio and Tora. In the meantime, Ushio undergoes physical testing, but stops as the spear begins to tingle. From Nakamura's perspective, a wall collapses and a being that resembles Hakumen comes out. Bal detects this and proceeds to attack, but he fails and gets engulfed by Hakumen's variant. Ushio meets Nakamura and wonders why she is not trying to escape. Hakumen's variant interrupts their conversion as he breaks through a wall that leads to the physical testing arena. He summons spikes at Helena and the other scientists, but Ushio blocks the attack even though the scientists have been cruel to him. He then switches to his beast form, and his power levels shock Helena, who takes note of his readings from a device. Meanwhile, Ushio fights the Hakumen's variant, including the yokais he absorbed. When he moves to land a kill strike on Bal, Nakamura begs him to stop because Bal saved her from Hakumen earlier. On the other hand, Bal begs Ushio to kill him because he has no control of her body anymore. Because of that, Nakamura runs off to meet Helena to see if there is a way to separate Bal from Hakumen's variant. She then finds out that it is impossible to do so, and then sheds tears as a result. Tora feels more vibrations coming from Ushio's position, while in his encounter with Hakumen's variant. Although he has no idea about what is going on, the thought of breaking out of his cage comes to mind, because he thinks that Nakamura has forgotten about him. Just before Hakumen's variant tries to end Ushio, Helena helps Nakamura to pull Tora's hair, and Tora reveals the signal. After Tora gets the signal, he smiles and arrives at Ushio's location in seconds. He puts on a dramatic entrance, and his presence shocks Helena. When Tora makes contact with Hakumen's variant, he quickly realizes that the yokai smells of Hakumen. He then makes fun of Ushio and powers up to fight. While powering up, the energy reading Tora gives off shocks Helene because no yokai has recorded such an amount of juice. While Tora strikes Hakumen's variant, Nakamura tells him that Bal is stuck in him. Meanwhile, the scientists notice that they are in danger since a poisonous gas is leaking into the room. Because of that, they head out of the room, but Ushio and Nakamura warn them not to leave. On the other hand, Tora fights with the enemy and manages to destroy its legs, but new ones grow out immediately. These legs are from the yokais that Hakumen's variant absorbed earlier. Ushio, who watches all that goes down, powers up and agrees to help Nakamura save her friend. He then joins Tora in battle and looks hyped that they will win. Seconds later, Helena meets with Nakamura and speaks of a way to stop the monster. She intends to use the sonic devices on the enemy's legs since the legs will be affected by the machines. The problem is that the person who operates the machine should be prepared to die because of the toxic gas flowing into the room. Even with this knowledge, Nakamura is still willing to stop Hakumen's variant, and she joins Helena in the control room. At sunset, military-grade aircraft fly toward the HAMMR institutes, and one of them carries Atsuzawa and Shigure. Back in the building, at some point, Tora lands a bolt of lightning on Hakumen's variant, but it does no damage to him. Rather, the enemy absorbs it and evolves. After absorbing such an amount of energy, he grows a large limb and uses it to stab Helena from a distance. This makes Nakamura get emotional about Helena. Even at that, Helena tells Nakamura to get herself together if she wants to stop the enemy. After that, she begins to set up the machines and devices in the control room. The opportunity presents itself for the machines to be activated, and Helena gives the order. After Nakamura activates the machines, Hakumen becomes immobile, and Ushio uses the opportunity to save Bao from the enemy. As soon as he frees Bao from Hakumen's control, the machines power down due to a power shortage, giving Hakumen's variant his locomotive abilities. Even at that, Tora and Ushio team up to fight the enemy. Helena watches from a distance and then understands the source of Ushio's power. His power with Tora stems from the fact that they have a partner to depend on. In a short while, Ushio and Tora manage to beat the enemy to shreds, but Helena warns that they should leave soon because of the gas. Also, the enemy's bots are coming back together, and because of that, Helena gives an order to one of the scientists for the facility to be blown up in 10 minutes. The fact that the building is going to blow up scares Nakamura, and as such, she tries to leave with Helena. Helena is losing blood, and for this reason, she cannot join Nakamura out of the facility. It takes a while before Nakamura agrees to the fact that there is nothing she can do about Helena's condition. She leaves the control room and meets up with Ushio on her way out to tell him that the building is rigged to blow. Before she can drop the info, she falls unconscious because of the poison gas. The same thing happens to Ushio as he changes back to human form and falls to the ground, leaving Tora with the responsibility of carrying them all. Meanwhile, the other two scientists express shock when they find out that Helena is not out of the facility. She is more concerned about getting Hakumen's data, so it will be used to create an anti-Hakumen weapon. At about 10 seconds when the building blows up, Tora speeds up aiming for the facility's exit. The facility blows up, but he makes it out with Ushio and the others. Ushio, on the other hand, freaks out when he wakes up and sees Nakamura engulfed in flames, but Tora calms him down, because that is a doll duplicate he made from his hair earlier. The fact that Nakamura is safe lightens Ushio's spirit, because she doesn't want anything to happen to her. Later that evening, Nakamura weeps over the fact that she could not save Helena, but Ushio consoles her, saying it was not her fault. Shigure interrupts their conversation because Helena's scientists have something to say to Ushio. The scientists then apologize for their actions in place of Helena, since it was her last word. The following day, Inoue and Nakamura arrive at the Fugen Temple to meet Ushio. Meanwhile, Ushio is at it again with Tora and appears to be late for school. For this reason, Nakamura interrupts Ushio and scolds him for fighting Tora, while Inoue offers Tora some hamburgers. The opening scene features two individuals of the opposite gender approaching the Fugen Temple to sweep its surroundings. The temple is over 500 years old and has a long-lasting history due to its age. Inside the temple is Ushio Aotsuki sitting across from his father, who gives a boring lecture about yokai. At the time, Ushio displays a large appetite as he ignores his father's speech and asks for more food. His father, on the other hand, gets pissed because his son is not paying attention to what he is saying. They both get into a violent argument where punches are exchanged. In the end, Ushio gets a beating, and he lies in pain beside the table in the room. Ushio's dad packs his bags and gets ready to relax at the Sea of Japan. Meanwhile, his son is pissed about the fact that his father has gone to the same location 2 times already in the same month. However, Ushio's dad begs his son to look after the temple while he is gone. He also tells him to air out the old books in the storehouse before leaving. After he leaves, Ushio proceeds to the storehouse to complete his assigned task. While at it, he trips over an object and falls to the ground. Upon looking back, he sees a ground door and uses all his might to open it to find out what lies inside. After he succeeds in opening the door, he falls to the ground and gets up only to find himself in an underground cellar. Upon looking back, he sees a huge monster, or yokai, smiling at him. This sends chills down Ushio's spine because he never expected his dad's stories to be true. The yokai smiles at the sight of Ushio, who crawls to a corner in fear. A spear lies stuck in the yokai chest, which prevents him from escaping the cellar. He states that only a human can pull the spear out from him. Ushio looks shocked at this point because his father has talked about the spear. He is also shocked by the fact that yokai exists and tries to process this discovery. The yokai then reveals that he has been impaled for 500 years. He addresses the spear as the Beast Spear, which is a damned spear that rends evil and pierces demons as it devours a person's soul. Because the yokai has been impaled for 500 years, he begs Ushio to help take it out. Out of curiosity, Ushio questions the yokai on what he will do when he is released, and he replies replies by stating that he will eat him and rain terror on the humans around. Ushio, upon hearing this, gets closer to the yokai and applies more pressure on the beast spear, inflicting pain on the yokai. He then proceeds to leave the cellar, but the yokai calls his attention before getting out. He tries to negotiate with Ushio, but does not present a good memo of what he will do when he gets out. As a result, Ushio heads out of the cellar, promising to leave the yokai locked for the rest of his life. Later that morning, he heads to school where he meets his classmate Inoue at school. On the way to class, another classmate Nakamura joins Ushio and takes note of his mood. While in class, Ushio sits alone and makes a rough sketch of the yokai from earlier. Some of his classmates tease him over the fact that he cannot draw perfectly, but Nakamura dives in to defend him. Meanwhile, Ushio says that Nakamura is laughing at his drawing in her mind, and this triggers her to get violent towards him. At midday, Ushio plays football with the school's team and scores a lovely goal. Because of that, his teammates advise him to join the club, but he declines, stating that he has a passion for drawing. Later that day, he reties home and rests in his art studio. Meanwhile, Inoue tags along with Nakamura to collect a book Nakamura lent to Ushio. They both arrive at the temple after some time and meet Ushio at the entrance of the main building. Along the line, Ushio begins to see small floating yokais around Nakamura and Inoue. This scares him, and because of that, he runs to meet the yokai in the basement. After narrating what he saw to the yokai laughs, and then explains why Ushio is seeing things. He states that his evil miasma escaped out of the cellar the moment the Ushio opened it. The miasma is his magical presence that builds up in the cellar over time and is responsible for attracting the small yokais to his residence. Because Nakamura and Inoue's life is in danger, Ushio begs the yokai to help him kill the yokais, and in exchange, he will take out the spear from the yokai's chest. The yokai agrees to Ushio's terms, and then agrees to keep his promise. This alone makes Ushio attempt to pull out the beast spear, and after some time, he succeeds. After the yokai is free, he attacks Ushio and threatens to devour him, as he intended in the past. Ushio manages to recover and get on his feet, supported by the beast spear. He then activates the beast spear by accident because the yokai betrayed his promise. Ushio, who is enraged at the time, becomes juiced with magical energy, while the yokai looks shocked. The sight of Ushio makes him remember the previous samurai who impaled him about 500 years ago. Because he fears captivity, he runs out of the cellar and tries to escape Ushio's reach. Meanwhile, Ushio catches up to him in no time and looks serious about killing the yokai. As a result, the yokai begs Ushio for forgiveness and promises to kill the other yokai attracted to his location. In the end, Ushio agrees and joins him to kill the flying yokais. After all the yokais are eliminated, Ushio reverts to normal and begins to speak about what the spear said to him. According to Ushio, the spear told him that it was made 2 millenniums ago in China for the sole purpose of slaying yokai. It converts a person's soul into a power that destroys yokai, and as such the wielder transforms into a beast, becoming one with the spear. After Ushio is done talking, he teases the yokai with the spear to make him stay in line. Ushio intends to eliminate other yokai that are attracted by the miasma. Meanwhile, Nakamura and Inoue look shocked while staring at Ushio because to them, it appears as if he is talking to himself. This is because they cannot see the yokai in his present state. In the end, Ushio names the yokai Tora and walks away, carrying him on his shoulders. Later that night, a statue shaped like a samurai is transported in a van alongside other items. Something looks off about the statue because it gives off a magical glow while being transported in the van. The following day, Tora sees something on TV that triggers him to destroy it. He is not used to modern-day technology because he has been trapped in a cellar for the past 5 centuries. Meanwhile, Ushio arrives at the living and smacks Tora because of his actions. Later that morning, Ushio heads to school, carrying Tora on his shoulders. The other students cannot see Tora because he is in spirit form. Also, Ushio converses with Tora, and his conversation draws attention because the other students cannot see who he is talking to. Minutes later, Inoue and Nakamura meet up with Ushio on his way to class. Inoue expresses the fact that she had the same scary dream with Nakamura the previous day. Ushio, upon hearing this, realizes that they think what happened yesterday was a dream. Their conversation comes to an end, and Nakamura heads off to the old school's building with Inoue. Meanwhile, other male students wonder how Ushio got talking to the 2 prettiest girls in school, and his excuse is that he attended the same elementary school with them. Moving on, Nakamura, Inoue, and other female students arrive at the old school's building to pick up some items for their social studies class. On getting there, Nakamura takes note of the samurai-shaped statue that is present. It gives off a weird look from a distance which compels Nakamura to take a close look. As she gets closer to the statue, she gets scared when the eye socket turns red, but assumes that her mind is playing tricks on her. She then ignores the statue and joins the other students to complete their objectives in the room. Meanwhile, The statue looks alive and monsters the activities of the girls via its eyes. After some time, Ushio notices that Nakamura and Inoue are late for class. Suddenly, the spear calls out to him, and then a massive earthquake occurs that vibrates the entire building. Ushio then carries the spear and heads to the old school's building as instructed by the spear. While on the way, he sees one of the girls taught was with Nakamura at the old school's building. She looks in a bad condition, as half of her body is gradually turning into stone. Tora, who is present at the time, states that a rock eater is present in the school. Because Nakamura and Inoue's lives are in danger, Ushio dashes swiftly to the old school's building to find them, but sees no one there when he arrives. Later that day, policemen set up a barrier around the old school's building and investigated the crime scene. In the meantime, Ushio gets into a violent argument with Tora because Tora does not want to help him. It gets to a point where Ushio takes out his spear and transforms into his beast side to keep Tora in check. As a result, Tora complies with Ushio and begins to give a brief lecture about the Stone Eater. He explains that there is a barrier in the building and mocks Ushio for not detecting it. Meanwhile, Nakamura and Inoue are enclosed within the Stone Eater's barrier, and they appear scared. Nakamura tries to summon courage so that the yokai does not use her fears to his advantage. Soon, Ushio arrives at the scene and slices through the barrier using the beast spear. He charges carelessly at the Stone Eater and pays a price for his actions. The Stone Eater wishes to turn Ushio into stone and consume him. Concurrently, the barrier closes, and Tora jumps out to save himself. Even as Ushio is held captive by the Stoner Eater, he begs Tora to help save the students who have turned to stone already. Tora is shocked over the fact that Ushio wants him to save other people over himself. The Stone Eater gradually turns Ushio into stone, while Tora grabs the girls and jumps out of the barrier before it closes. In the meantime, Ushio craves the Beast Spear, because with it, he can easily defeat the Stone Eater. Tora takes pity on Ushio and holds the barrier with his hands, preventing it from closing immediately. Coincidentally, Ushio summons the spear and it breaks him free from the Stone Eater grasp. The spear then flies over to Tora's position and supports him with the barrier, allowing him to land a lightning attack on the Stone Eater. The impact of the attack causes an energy surge that draws the attention of the policemen outside the building. Even at that, the battle is not over, because the Stone Eater takes another form and attacks Ushio. While in midair, Tora reveals the yokai's weakness to Ushio, and he uses this information to his advantage. After they both defeat the yokai, the effects of his magic wear off on the affected students, reverting them to their normal state. Later that night, Tora watches the news and looks excited because he sees himself on TV. Meanwhile, Ushio looks pissed as Tora prevents him from getting some sleep. Weeks later, Ushio's dad returns and gives his son a lecture about yokais and the history of the Fugen Temple. He speaks about the yokai that was imprisoned in their basement and warns Ushio not to go down there. Little did he know that Ushio had gone there and released the yokai already. After having breakfast, Ushio takes up the beast spear and proceeds to leave for school. His father, upon seeing the spear, looks shocked, but assumes that the spear is not what he thinks it is. Nakamura and Inoue wait for Ushio outside the temple. After Ushio gets out of the house, he sees his father in a state of shock because he finds out that Ushio accessed the cellar. Later that morning, Ushio arrives at the traditional Japanese artwork building. On the 7th floor is where the works of Michio Hanyu are displayed. Ushio goes through all the paintings of Hanyu and is excited by the painting technique. Along the line, he takes note of a sad picture at the end of the room. It's a picture that Hanyu painted before he did, and features Reiko, his daughter. Although the painting gives a dark message, Ushio states that he likes the picture. Also, it appears that the picture is a fake and the original is with Reiko, Hanyu's daughter, because she inherited it. Because Nakamura knows who Reiko is, she tells her to ask Reiko to model for one of his future paintings. They all leave the scene, but Tora takes some time before he leaves. From the look of things, he has more information about the painting than what is displayed in the studio. Towards midday, Ushio arrives at school and races towards class. Along the line, he falls to the ground as a result of Masaki's leg. Masaki is a third year in the school who is much bigger than Ushio. He beats up Ushio because he has been cocky lately, while Tora laughs from a distance. Minutes later, Reiko arrives at the scene and tells Masaki to beat her up. As a result, he stops inflicting pain on Ushio, letting him go in the process. On the other hand, Ushio chases after Reiko because he wants her to model for him. Reiko declines to walk away from him after having a strange conversation with him about death. He insists, and a car almost knocks him off the road. He survives because he uses the spear to divide the vehicle into two. After that, Tora observes something off about the van, as a weird presence flies out of it. Meanwhile, Reiko speaks to the painting in her house and begs her father not to do anything, and that she will be joining him soon. Later that day, Ushio meets up with Nakamura and finds out some twisted information about Reiko. Sometime in the past, Reiko transferred to their school and Nakamura made friends with her. At some point, all the guys who asked her out got into an accident. Because of that, Reiko attempted suicide, but failed because she was saved before dying. One day, she warns Nakamura to stay away from her because the accidents were her fault. Along the line, something threatens Nakamura's life, but Reiko saves her from imminent death. Eventually, Reiko breaks from her relationship with Nakamura and runs away. After Ushio listens to this narration from Nakamura, he does not change his mind about meeting Reiko. At sunset, Ushio departs the school's premises and heads to a different location. While on the way, Masaki blocks him and warns him to stay away from Reiko. It gets to a point where their conversation gets violent, but Ushio manages to deal damage on Masaki. Ultimately, he tells Masaki to give him some information on Reiko and agrees. Sometime in the past, when Reiko and Masaki were kids, they were childhood friends who often played together. Along the line, Reiko's mother betrayed her husband and ran off with another guy. This act broke Reiko's father to the extent that Masaki noticed some changes in him. After Reiko's dad passed away, weird things began happening to Reiko out of the blue. In the present, Reiko's dad appears in a painting of Reiko herself because he sensed Ushio's presence around his daughter. The following day, he attacks Ushio because he is dancing with his daughter. Reiko begs her dad to spare Ushio so that no one will die. At this point, Ushio realizes why Reiko avoids getting close to people. Before Reiko's dad can harm Ushio, Tora arrives and lands a lightning attack on him, causing him to disintegrate. Meanwhile, Reiko runs away after her father disappears. Later that day, Masaki and Ushio arrive at a place where Reiko might be. Masaki's prediction is correct because Reiko stands at a high point of the building hoping to commit suicide. Just before she falls to the ground, Masaki and Ushio team up to save her. While at it, Hanyu appears and begs his daughter to join him, but after Ushio speaks to her, she decides to follow him. This alone breaks Hanyu's heart, and he resorts to violence. He takes Reiko and Masaki and heads into the painting so that they will be trapped there forever. Ushio tries his best to stop Hanyu, but he fails. Tora, who was present at the time, swallows his pride and enters the painting to help Ushio. He helps Ushio because he wants to be the one that will eat him alive. While at it, he enters into the painting once more and lands a nasty attack on Hanyu. After he gets out of the painting, he tells Ushio to pierce the painting with his blade, but Reiko tries to sacrifice herself so her dad won't die again. Even at that, the blade passes through Reiko and stabs Hanayu in the picture because it was only designed to kill monsters. In the end, Reiko sees a spiritual representation of her father and moves closer to him. Hanyu bows prostrate in front of Ushio and then fades momentarily. After that, the painting on the wall becomes bright and not dull, making Reiko smile as a result. After some days, some construction workers lift a large keystone from some boxes. An old man who is present at the time warns them from doing so, but they do not listen. Minutes after the keystone is lifted, flying heads, otherwise called Nurareyon, proceed out of the individual boxes and devour everyone present in the scene. The vile yokai creatures demand the head of the woman who imprisoned them. The woman in question is Mikado Hizaki. The following day, Ushio wakes up and sees a letter his dad left for him. It reads, "Don't look for me." And after Ushio reads the letter's content, he assumes his dad is still trying to receive her from the shock of Ushio opening the cellar. Also, Ushi listens to the news on the TV and frowns after he hears that some humans were devoured at night. Because of that, he uses his weapon to attack Tora, thinking that he is the one who killed the humans. Tora tries to prove his innocence, but he ends up taking a beating from Ushio. In anger, he departs Ushio's residence and heads for the city to find humans to eat. Later that morning, Inoue gets a call from her parents and steps out of her house. Meanwhile, Ushio heads off to look for Tora. Along the line, he arrives at a crime scene where an old man speaks of begins who have awakened. Out of curiosity, Ushio gets to his position and asks a few questions. The old man is the one from yesterday who survived the attack from the Nurarehyons. He holds a book that carries Inoue's picture. Ushio sees this book and asks about who is in the picture. The man then explains that the person is Mikado Hizaki, the same person responsible for caging the Nurarehyon. Elsewhere, Tora encounters difficulties when trying to pick his snake for the day. His difficulties stem from the fact that he is not used to the 21st century's technology. In the meantime, the old man gives Ushio a brief lecture on how Hizaki was able to seal the Nurarehyons away. At some point, Ushio finds out that Inoue's life is in danger because she looks like Hizaki. Tora, on the other hand, does not give up on his quest for food. While at it, he rejects eating some humans because of their jewelry, body odor, as well as other things that he does not like. He gets to a point where the hunger intensifies and Inoue proceeds out of a building. Upon seeing Inoue, he observes that her skin is soft, as well as other pleasuring features that make her a tasty meal. He brands her as his target and moves to get her. As he tries to get hold of Inoue, he senses something off about the area that makes him assume that yokais are around. His assumption is right, as the Nurarihyuns arrive from nowhere to consume Inoue. Just before one of them could consume Inoue, Ushio arrives and lands an attack on one of them, saving Inoue in the process. He tells her to run for her life, while he faces the rest of the vile creatures. Because Ushio is outnumbered, he gets tossed to a car after some seconds and lies unconscious as a result. After the encounter with Ushio, the creatures chase after Inoue, but lose track of her after she makes it into the elevator. Even at that, the creatures find a way up the elevator, and one of them tries to eat Inoue. Because of the glass barrier protecting the elevator, the creature misses his target, but Inoue falls from the elevator, but holds onto her bag, attached to a rod. Just before she lets go, Tora dives and saves her because he wants to eat her. The fact that the creatures are after his meal irritates him, and as such he engages them in battle and kills one of them easily, because the creatures have lost one of their own. They go after Inoue, leaving only one behind to face Tora. Inoue runs for her life, but stops after she gets surrounded by 3 other creatures. Soon, Tora arrives at the scene carrying the lifeless head of one of the creatures. Tora notices that the creatures harmed Inoue, and Bekasue of that he gets infuriated. Fueled by rage, he electrocutes most of the creatures, turning them to dust. The last yokai who survives proceeds to eliminate Inoue, but Ushio arrives in time and stabs him, saving Inoue from death. Tora is relieved that Inoue is safe, but is not happy with the fact that Inoue is with Ushio. In the end, Ushio apologized to Tora for accusing him wrongly in the morning. They both enter into an argument because of some painful words Tora mutters, but Inoue interrupts them. She then offers Tora a hamburger to quench his hunger and promises that it tastes better than humans. In Hong Kong, Hugh battles against 2 monsters in human form. He is an exorcist skilled in martial arts with a high hatred for yokais. He easily eliminates the first monster but takes his time to kill the second one. The fact that the monsters killed a child earlier triggers Hyu to kill the other one maliciously. It appears that he is looking for a specific monster, and the ones that he killed are not it. Before walking away, he sees footage from Japan on TV where Tora is shown. The mere sight of Tora triggers him, and it seems that Tora, the yokai, he has been searching for. The following morning, Tora tries to kill Ushio in his sleep, but the spear triggers Ushio to wake up. Even at that, Tora threatens to kill Ushio and eat him no matter what. This statement triggers Ushio to attack Tora, but he gets sliced on his face. As blood flows from Ushio's face, he gets enraged and as such transforms into his beast self to attack Tora. Tora at this point knows that Ushio means business, so he runs for his life to avoid dying at Ushio's hands. Later that morning, Hyu arrives at the airport and uses hypnotic magic to sway his way past the aviation officer. In the meantime, Ushio notices that the wounds he sustained from Tora are not healing up as fast as they should. He stares at the mirror and decides that he will end Tora when he gets the chance. Meanwhile, Yu patrols the streets of the city and notices some adults assaulting a kid. Yu, upon seeing this, gets upset and punishes the men for their actions. Just as he is about to land the finishing strike on the last guy, Ushio shows up from nowhere and prevents the attack. He seeks to know why Hyu is attacking the men. On the other hand, Hyu notices that Ushio has been with the yokai he is looking for. Because of that, he beats Ushio up and asks about the whereabouts of Tora. Along the line, the beast spear arrives to protect Ushio from danger. Hyu, upon seeing the spear, realizes that it is the beast spear and then lets go of Ushio. Minutes later, he goes on his knees and begs Ushio for forgiveness. He then goes on to introduce himself to Ushio, including the part where he is an exorcist. After the brief introduction, he holds out a picture of Tora and asks about his whereabouts. When Ushio sees the picture, he looks shocked and he wonders what Tora would have done to him. Hyu states that Tora changed his life and then proceeds to narrate an incident that occurred in the past. Years back, Hyu had a child and wife in Guangdong, China. He loved his family so much and enjoyed spending time with them. One night, he heads back home only to find out that his wife and child have been eaten by a yokai. After walking a few steps, the yokai leaves a mark on his face and runs away. After that happened to Hyu, he became a different person and devoted himself to finding the yokai responsible for killing his family. In the present, Ushio thinks about Hyu's situation and concludes that Tora is not the one who killed Hyu's family because he was locked up for 500 years. Even at that, he gives off information about Tora to Hyu because he wants Tora gone. Later that afternoon, Hyu sits alone at a spot and notices Tora's presence. As such, he tells Tora to reveal himself so they can fight. Tora does not know why Hyu wants him dead, but he prepares to fight because Hyu wants to battle him. Their battle begins as Tora attempts the first strike. Although Hyu is human, he manages to keep up with Tora using his impressive martial arts skills and magic. Their battle gets to a point where both parties become exhausted and take cover to gather their strength back. Meanwhile, Ushio heads out of school and meets Nakamura at the exit. The conversation with Nakamura slaps some sense into him, and he hurries home to stop the battle between Tora and Hyu. On getting to Hyu's location, he sees Tora lying weak on the ground. he obstructs the battle and tries to talk some sense into Hugh, who is pissed at the time. He then explains that Tora has been locked up for 500 years, adding that he is not the one who killed Hayu's family. The fact that Ushio says this upsets Hayu, who is already hyped about beating Tora to death. As a result, he lands a nasty punch on Ushio, but he does not fight back. Instead, Ushio proves that Topoa is innocent by displaying Tora's claw pattern on his face. The mark on Hugh's face is different from the one on Ushio's, proving Tora innocent. Even at that, Hugh takes on Ushio and begins to punch him because all his training and effort is for nothing. At some point, he summons some blades at Ushio but gets punched in the face after the blades pierce Ushio. As Hugh lies on the ground, he reflects on his actions and screams all his anger out. Minutes later, Ushio regains consciousness and Hugh bids farewell to him. He wishes to search for the one responsible for killing his family in Japan. Before he leaves, Ushio questions him about information regarding the Beast Spear, but he declines to answer. He then promises to meet Ushio in the future. The following day, Ushio lies asleep, covered in bandages, as a result of the wounds he sustained from his encounter with Hugh. On the other hand, Tora tries to eliminate Ushio, but he stops when he notices his condition. He then flies off to get hamburgers instead of having Ushio as breakfast. After a week, Ushio, Nakamura, Inoue, and some other students enjoy themselves at a beach. Tora, who is in spiritual form, floats above the water and enjoys the sun rays incident on him. After some minutes of exposure, he sprints off to have his version of fun. The way he runs catches Ushio's attention, and he wonders where Tora might be headed. Some meters away from Ushio, a little boy named Tatsuya pours sand on Ushio's stuff, and this triggers Ushio. The way Ushio reacts to the boy draws Nakamura's attention. When she arrives at the scene, she tells Ushio to calm down, while the kid seizes the opportunity to run away after spraying water on her. Later that afternoon, Ushio finds out from Nakamura's grandparents that Tatsuya lost his mother about 2 years ago. Also, Tatsuya has not made friends since his mother's passing, but only plays pranks on people. Elsewhere, Tora races on the surface of the ocean and detects the presence of a yokai. He stops running and warns the yokai to reveal himself. The yokai in question is Umizato, who dwells in the ocean, maintaining control of other yokais who dwell on that part of the ocean. After he gets out of the water, he begs Tora to help him kill a huge yokai named Ayakashi, responsible for terrorizing the waters. After Tora hears Umizato's request, he smiles and agrees to help Umizato. Elsewhere, Tatsuya pours sand on Ushio's stuff again, and as a result, Ushio chases after him. Back at sea, Umizato then leads the way to Ayakashi's barrier, and after some time, they arrive. When Tora sees the yokai, his pupils dilate because he is shocked by the yokai's size. Back on the beach, Tatsuya runs from Ushio and bumps into some men who pick on him. Nakamura arrives at the scene shortly and takes on the men, scaring them off. Tatsuya, who witnesses this, confides in Nakamura and weeps in the process. Back at sea, Tora tries to take on Ayakashi but fails to deal enough damage. At some point, he gets engulfed by the yokai, but before he gets swallowed, he tells Umizato to find Ushio. Moving on, Tatsuya addresses Nakamura as his sister and urges her to play with him. Nakamura agrees, and Tatsuya leads the way to a different spot on the beach. While on the way, Nakamura notices something off about the water, and then the Ayakashi heads out of the water to attack them. In the meantime, Ushio wakes up from sleep and hears Umizato calling out to him. After Umizato reveals himself to Ushio, he reveals that Tora is in danger, and Ushio runs off to go save him. While on the way, Inoue interrupts Ushio, stating that Nakamura is in danger. Since Nakamura is important to him, he hurries to her grandparents' house to speak to her over the phone. While on a call with Nakamura, Ushio finds out that they are in the belly of a giant yokai. He also finds out that Tatsuya is with Nakamura, and this sends him nuts. Before the call ends, he tells Nakamura to be staring, adding that he will come save them. While inside the tract of Ayakashi, Nakamura encourages Tatsuya by telling them not to lose hope. Seconds later, some lower yokais proceed to attack Nakamura and Tatsuya, but Tora uses his powers to save them. Meanwhile, Umizato leads Ushio to Ayakashi's location. On getting there, he experiences difficulties in stabbing the yokai since the yokai's skin is tough. At some point, he chops through the yokai's barrier and then gains access to its mouth. Back in the yokai's gut, Tatsuya and Nakamura are frightened by Tora's presence due to his looks and size. Even at that, Tora asks Nalamura about Ushio, and she looks shocked that Tora knows Ushio. Because Tora does not look hostile, she encourages the kid to remain composed while she converses with the yokai, Tora. Nakamura then begins to narrate a story about Ushio's past because it resonates with Tatsuya's. Sometime in the past, when Ushio was younger, he often spent time at Nakamura's house because his dad was busy with work. At that time, he was violent and was always picked on because of his mom's passing. One day, Nakamura's dad found out and took Ushio out until late at night. After that day, Nakamura observed that Ushio was less violent and he avoided getting into fights with other kids from school. In real time, Nakamura states that she does not know what happened between Ushio and her dad that led to Ushio's new behavior. While Nakamura speaks to Tatsuya, Tora notices the water below him moving. It gets worse as all objects in the yokai's gut are drawn to a center where they will be chipped to bits. Soon, a force that mimics a magnetic pull acts sideways on everything lying in the yokai's gut. The force draws Nakamura and Tatsuya, and because of that, Tora responds quickly and saves them. Just when it gets unbearable, Ushio arrives at the scene and gives Tora a hand. Minutes later, the beast spear flies on its own and impales the eye of the yokai, which lies in the middle of the chip zone. Ushio takes out the spear and tears his way out of the yokai while Tora supports him with his lightning. The combined attacks of Tora and Ushio cast lots of damage on the yokai, and as such, the yokai died. The following day, Nakamura experiences difficulties believing the fact that Ushio had a hand in saving her from the yokai's belly. When it is time for them to leave the beach, Tatsuya arrives and presents a gift to Ushio. Ushio accepts it and then waves him goodbye while on a moving bus. The previous day, after Ushio and Tora are done defeating Ayakashi, they both enter into a conversation with Umizato, where he freaks out upon hearing Ushio's last name. It appears that Ushio's mother is alive and Umizato is scared of her for some unidentified reason. Before Umizato descends into the ocean, he appreciates them for their efforts in defeating the yokai, and then warns Tora to stay away from Ushio. Later that day, Ushio arrives at the Fugen temple, pissed about the fact that his dad lied to him about his mother. On getting to the house, he meets his dad and demands an explanation about his mother's existence. At first, Ushio's dad, Shigure, tries to dodge the question but gets smacked in the head because Ushio means business. Along the line, Shigure receives a call that annoys Ushio because he demands answers. After the call, Shigure runs out of the house quickly so that Ushio does not catch up to him. At sunset, Ushio visits his mother's tombstone and thinks deeply about the fact that he lied to him. In the meantime, Shigure defeats some yokai that are haunted by a little girl. After he is done, he receives a call from his superior confirming the completion of his assigned task. Later that evening, he appears before the Kohame sect, which is a group formed for the sole purpose of killing yokai. Sighted in front of him are elders of the group awaiting his reports. Seconds later, Shigure states that the beast spear has been withdrawn, and this info shocks most of the elders. He also adds that his son, Ushio, is the one responsible for pulling the spear out of Tora. Out of curiosity, one of the elders questions why Tora has not devoured Ushio yet, but Shigure appears speechless. This alone pisses the elder off, but his superior, Oyakume, assumes control of the room and begins to speak. She reminds Shigure about the rules of their sect and then orders him to kill Tora. While she speaks, some elders suggest that Ushio be tested thoroughly because disaster awaits if he is unfit to wield the spear. On the other hand, Shigure proposes to test his son, and Oyakume agrees with him, leaving the rest of the elders shocked. Oyakume then speaks of a being named Hakumen no Mono, who will be rebirthed because the beast spear has been withdrawn. Soon, the meeting comes to an end, and the elders are not on par with Oyakume's decisions. As such, they intend to take laws into their own hands. Later that evening, Shigure arrives at the Fugen temple and smacks his son because he is messing around with the spear. His reason is that the spear has a terrible history, and it exists only to slay yokai. After that, Ushio reminds Shigure about the conversation regarding his mother. Shigure, upon hearing this, states that they will talk about it after dinner. Meanwhile, 4 warriors sent by the elders head for the Fugen temple against Oyakume's wishes. After dinner, Shigure begins the conversation about Ushio's mother. He asks about Ushio's intent after he finds out the truth behind his mother, but Ushio replies by stating that he cannot be satisfied with lies. Following that, Shigure takes out shitloads of cash and hands it to his son. The money is to cover his son's travel expenses because he will need to travel to get information regarding his mother. Minutes after the conversation with Ushio, Shigure changes to a white robe. He then calls Tora's name and his materializes. After that, he reveals that he was ordered to kill Tora, and this leaves Ushio shocked. Tora, who is one to never back down from a fight, accepts the challenge and heads out of the house to face Shigure. Even before their battle begins, Ushio thinks that it is a joke, but he gets knocked back into reality when he sees his dad exchanging punches with Tora. Although Shigure looks like a middle-aged dad, his attacks are lethal for a normal human. He battles against Tora and uses his speed to his advantage. Meanwhile, Ushio does not like the fact that both parties are fighting, and as such, he tries to interrupt. His first attempt to interrupt the fight fails because he gets smacked to the ground. After falling on the ground, he transforms into his beast self and spots the battle between Tora and Shiger. In the end, Ushio finds out that Shiger never had any intentions of killing Tora, as Tora confirms this. It appears that Shiger was only testing Tora to see for himself what Tora's personality is. In the end, Shiger concludes that Tora does not have to die. Meanwhile, the 4 warriors sent by the elders surround the Fugen temple. They then attack Tora to kill him, but Shiger moves swiftly to prevent this. Shiger believes that Tora and Ushio are fated to battle against Hakumen no Mona, but the warriors object to his statement. It appears that their objective is to take the spear from Ushio and return it to the sect. The way they try to achieve this objective does not sit right with Ushio, and as such, he deploys the spear to fight. In a short time, a battle begins, and Shiger charges his chi up to fight. At some point, one of the warriors manages to restrict Tora's movements, but he looks shocked when Tora moves. The warrior is left at the mercy of Tora, but surprisingly, Tora spares his life. Just in front of Shiger's house, Ushio falls unconscious after taking a nasty attack to the head. Shiger sees this and thinks of the best way out of his situation. In split seconds, Tora arrives and frees Shiger from captivity. They both team up to fight the remaining warriors who defiled Shigeru's home. The following day, Ushio wakes up and prepares for his trip. When he gets to the door, he smiles at his father and heads off on his quest. A month earlier, an aerial monster wrapped itself around a plane, causing the pilot to lose control. In the present, Ushio waits for his flight at the airport. Because Tora has missed over 500 years of his life, he looks amazed by the sight of an airplane. Just behind Ushio is a man named Atsuzawa, speaking to a young girl named Yu. Atsuzawa explains that a monster caused the death of Yu's father. Ushio, upon hearing this, looks shocked and becomes interested in what the man is saying. While Atsuzawa explains himself, Yu gets up and leaves his presence because he thinks that he is lying. Ushio, who observes, calls Tora's attention so that he can explain the nature of the yokai in question. Tora then states that the yokai Fusuma lives in the sky, but comes down to the ground to devour humans. He adds that he has fought against Fusuma before, but failed to kill it since he is resistant to most of his powers. The yokai's weaknesses are blackened teeth and lots of fire. Finally, Tora warns Ushio that Fusuma is up in the sky. When it is time for Ushio's flight, he boards the plane and sits beside Yu. Before the plane takes off, Yu begins to think about her late father, and it turns out that her father is the pilot who died a month ago under the hands of the yokai that lives in the sky. In the present, Ushio grabs Yu's hand because he is scared of heights. This leads to a conversation between Yu and Ushio as Yu begins to speak about her father's passing. About a month ago, Yu's father was the captain of a plane that crashed. According to Yu, the crash was a result of a near miss with a self-defense force fighter. The man who flew the fighter at that time was Atsuzawa, who served under Yu's dad. In the present, Yu states that Atsuzawa is the man responsible for killing her father, adding that she will never forgive him. Meanwhile, the yokai flies toward the plane with the intent of devouring the humans in it. Back on the plane, Atsuzawa converses with Ushio about the incident that occurred a month ago. He states that he saw something ahead of him while he was flying the fighter that day the incident occurred. On his radar, nothing popped up, but he managed to dodge Yu's father's plane by maneuvering past it. While dodging the plane, he saw the monster wrapped around the cockpit where Yu's father was sitting. In the present, Atsuzawa notices something off about the air pressure because it reminds him of the accident. Before he can explain himself to Ushio, Fusuma attacks the plane, causing the passengers to freak out. At some point, Yu looks out the window and screams after seeing Fusuma's ugly face. The plane begins to lose altitude because of the Fusuma's interference, and as a result, most of the passengers scream. Amid the commotion, Ushio summons his spear so he can take down the yokai. Meanwhile, Atsuzawa reaches the cockpit and finds out that the pilots are gone. He assumes control of the plane and tries to stabilize its flight path. Also, Tora phases through the plane and appears on top of the aircraft. In front of him is Fusuma, who questions him on what he is doing there. Tora, who is upset at the time, spits fire from his mouth, but Fusuma dodges it. Atsuzawa manages to stabilize the plane to the extent that the passengers assume that they are safe. At this point, Yu converses with Ushio and confirms the fact that Atsuzawa was telling the truth about her father's accident. Even as the plane seems calm, Tora warns that the battle is not over. Conversely, Yu heads to the cockpit and finds out that Atsuzawa is hurt. Atsuzawa contacts the self-defense forces, but they do not believe his story because Fusuma is not on their radar. Ushio then arrives at the cockpit and states that Fusuma can be defeated with fire, emphasizing that lots of it will be required. Based on this information, Atsuzawa suggests that a missile be used, but the issue is that the self-defense forces will not mobilize one from his crazy story. Furthermore, Tora yells at Ushio, telling him to use the spear on Fusuma. They both come up with a plan, and Ushio manages to stab Fusuma with the beast spear through the plane. Because the spear is designed to kill yokai, Fusuma becomes weak, and part of his body detaches from the plane. Because of that, the self-defense forces spot his presence on their radar and send armed jet fighters to their location. In the meantime, Tora and Ushio team up and slice off Fusuma's limbs, setting him floating in the atmosphere. This also allows the jet fighters to launch a missile at Fusuma without putting the plan at risk. Fusuma burns to death after a missile comes in contact with his body. Just before he dies completely, he expresses happiness because he will not be alive to see Hakumen no Mona. Meanwhile, another problem faces Ushio and the rest of the passengers because the plane's landing gear is gone. Ushio then trash talks Tora into doing something about the plan, and as such, he supports the plane and helps it land safely. Finally, the plane lands safely, and Yu apologizes to Atsuzawa for not believing him earlier. Following that, Tora calls Ushio so that they can continue their quest to find his mom. After some days, a yokai named Juro is chased by two of his kind. Juro looks like your typical werewolf with anger issues. He gets chased by his siblings because he wants to harm the humans for taking their home from them. His siblings fail to catch up to him, and as such, he causes a car accident that kills the humans in the car. Finally, one of his siblings concludes that only the person who wields the beast spear can stop him. The following day, Ushio and Tora walk along the city streets. It appears that he is being watched by two unidentified individuals. Along the line, Tora notices the presence of a yokai and warns Ushio that it is a kametachi. Kametachi is a term to describe a yokai who looks like Juro and the rest of his kind. The kametachi proceeds to attack Ushio, but does not catch Ushio off guard. Because of that, she takes the form of a human and begs Ushio for mercy. After that, she leads the way to the mountains with her brother so she can request something from Ushio. On getting there, Ushio tells Tora that he feels that the kametachi are not bad guys. In a short while, both siblings speak about their brother Juro and beg Ushio to kill him since he wields the beast spear. The fact that Raishin and Kagari want Ushio to kill their brother does not sit right with him, and because of that, he decides to leave. At this point, the kametachis provide evidence to prove that Juro is dangerous to humans around the area. Ushio, upon seeing this, begins to reconsider his actions. Just outside Raishin's chambers, Tora gets violent with Kagari because she insulted him. Kagari slices off Tora's hand with her blade when Tora is not paying attention. It appears that he sensed something off about the area and was distracted because he wanted to know what it was. Seconds later, Juro arrives at the scene, leaving Ushio and the others shocked. He reveals that he will go about killing the humans even if it breaks their law. He feels his actions are justified because the humans chased them away from their homes in the past. The idea of living in fear of humans and taking their form does not sit right with him, and as such, he rips off his human flesh and reveals his true form. Along the line, Juro notices something off about Ushio and then finds out that he wields the beast spear. This alone makes him angry because he assumes that his siblings want him dead. On the other hand, Ushio powers up and attacks Juro, but fails to hit his target. Because of how skilled Juro is, he easily knocks Ushio to the ground and moves to take the kill shot. But Tora arrives at the scene and prevents Juro from killing Ushio. Finally, Juro evades the premises because he sees that he is outnumbered. A minute later, Tora finds out that Ushio is in critical condition, as his wounds can only be healed by a kametachi. Kagari, who possesses healing medicine, uses it to heal Ushio, making him regain consciousness. Even at that, Ushio looks upset about Juro and wants to go after him in his condition. He lacks the strength to do so, and as a result, he passes out momentarily. Later that evening, Raishin and the others head to find Juro. They know where Juro will be because he intends to attack construction workers in the woods to seek vengeance for losing his home. Juro, upon seeing Ushio, gets enraged because his Kagari saved him from death. He tries a swift attack on Ushio but misses his target, as Ushio moves swiftly away from danger. Even at that, Raishin and Kagari try to talk Juro out of his intentions, but it appears that Juro is far gone. Ushio then seizes the opportunity to attack Juro, but he does not deal enough damage on him. Juro then slices a large part of a cliff, causing the chipped parts to fall on Raishin, Kagari, and Tora. After the dust clears out, Juro finds Tora and Ushio supporting the rocks in such a way that prevents them from crushing Raishin and Kagarin. Both siblings are stuck under a vehicle, and gasoline leaks close to their location. Because of the flammable nature of gasoline, Tora leaves the rock in Ushio's hands and tries to lift the vehicle off Raishin and Kagari. Meanwhile, Juro takes pleasure in the fact that Ushio, Tora, and the others are in a life-threatening condition. In a short while, the construction workers arrive at the scene because it's time for their world shift. One of them begins to aim stones at Juro, and this does not end well. Juro deploys his blade, and the human throws a lit cigarette from his mouth in fear of death. The lit cigarette causes a large fire as it comes in contact with the gasoline on the ground. Because of that, the humans run away from the scene just so they can save themselves. Even at that, Tora and Ushio try their best to save Raishin and Kagari from their situation. Shockingly, Juro joins in to help, and one of the humans turns around to assist them after Ushio screams for help. Raishin and Kagari are saved in time before the gasoline causes an explosion. As the day breaks, Ushio promises to find a new home for Raishin and his siblings. Juro has mixed feelings because the same person he tried to kill earlier is the one promising to give him a new home. Unfortunately, he attacks Ushio out of the blue, but Ushio impales him with the beast spear to save himself from imminent death. It appears that Juro wanted to die, and he is satisfied with the fact that Ushio apologized in place of the humans who took his home from him. Raishin and Kagari weep as Juro's body turns into dust and gradually fades away. Before Juro passes on, he tells his siblings to maintain their human form if they want to live peacefully amongst humans. Meanwhile, Ushio gets on his knees, spitting the word "why" multiple times. Later that evening, the warriors who were sent to retrieve the beast spear report back to the elders from the sect. The elders express disappointment over the fact that the warriors failed to achieve their objectives. Soon, Nijira, the priest, arrives, and all the elders bow to acknowledge his presence. He is fully aware that the elders acted carelessly in his absence and then calls them back to order. It appears that Oyakume is upset over the elders' deeds, and Nijira reveals this to the elders. He then gives the order for all members of the sect to meet at a hall where he will address them according to Oyakume's wishes. During their meeting, Nijira states that the sect is to observe Ushio Aotsuki as a candidate to inherit the beast spear. Also, he adds that Tora's life will be spared. Because this is a direct order from Oyakume, all the members of the sect bow to acknowledge it. Later that night, Ushio and Tora take a dip at a hot spring. The pleasure Tora derives from the warm water causes him to give off a weird smile. Minutes later, Ushio hears a lady singing close to his location. Out of curiosity, he tries to find the source of the voice, and in the end, he sees a girl named Saya who possesses long white hair. She then heads off after she sees Ushio staring at her. Meanwhile, Tora, who looks serious at the time, concludes that there is something off about Saya. In minutes, Saya arrives at her house and meets her father and grandmother. Her dad is upset about the fact that she stayed out so late, and he orders her to get to work. Saya arrives at a room within the mansion where a deity named Omamori resides. It appears that Saya is there to keep her company and prevent her from being bored. Along the line, Omamori speaks of a strange human and a yokai. She assumes that they will come and get her and Sei out of the mansion because she wishes to leave. The following day, Ushio notices Saya walking on the road. At some point, she faints, and Ushio moves quickly to prevent her from being hit by a car. After that, Ushio carries Sia on his back and heads to the mansion. On the way, Saya regains consciousness and reveals her condition to Ushio. "Very often I faint," she said. Along the line, Ushio finds out that Saya can see Tora, who is invisible to most humans. This alone confirms Tora's suspicion of Saya earlier. Meanwhile, Ushio supports Saya as he heads for the Takatori mansion. It appears that the people from that family prosper as long as they pay respect to the deity, Omamori, which explains why they don't want her to leave. Later that afternoon, Saya's dad arrives at Saya's position and looks pissed over the fact that Saya fainted. The way he speaks to Saya upsets Ushio, who gets moved to raise his voice at Saya's father. Just before Saya's dad leaves the room, he looks at Ushio's spear, which is covered with a white material. Moving on, Ushio walks around the mansion with Saya, who gives a narration about her bloodline. Sometime in the past, Saya's mom reveals that their lineage acts as a bridge between humans and yokai. This explains why Saya was able to see Tora earlier. In the present, Saya explains that her mother was used by the Takatori family as a tool to ensure its wealth. Also, she speaks about Omamori, the deity who brings prosperity to the household she resides at. Saya leads the way to her chambers and Ushio sees her. Minutes later, Omamori enters into a conversation with Ushio and Tora, where she begs them to break the barrier around the rook she can leave the mansion. In the meantime, Saya's dad realizes that Ushio possesses the beast spear because of some prophecy that Omamori told him in the past. At the time when Saya's father was a child, Omamori told him that someone with the spear would come to the mansion and break her out. In the present, Tora speaks about the repercussions of breaking the barrier, and it does not look good. If the barrier is broken, it will cause a chi surge that will blast Omamori and other persons present to bits. After Tora reveals this info, Saya opposes the idea of breaking the barrier because it would mean Omamori's potential death. Along the line, Saya's dad arrives at the scene with the intent of preventing the barrier from being broken. He battles Saya's dad to the point where he stops and heads to break the barrier. On the other hand, Saya's dad looks unbothered because Saya will be affected if the barrier is destroyed. For some reason, Ushio cares about Saya, and this alone favors Saya's dad. because Ushio will not do something to harm her. Finally, Saya agrees for the barrier to be destroyed, and Tora moves to shield Omamori to protect her from the blast. The fact that Saya agrees shocks her dad and grandmom because their family will be thrown into poverty after Omamori leaves. Saya then steps aside, and Ushio uses the beast spear to destroy the barrier, destroying most arts of the mansion. After the dust clears out, Saya's dad begs Omamori to stay, but she ignores him and flies away. In the end, Tora drags Ushio away after he says his goodbyes to Saya. Later that night, Nakamura dreams about a time when Ushio carried her on his back. In the present, she wakes up and wonders why she had such a dream. She gets up from her bed, pissed about the fact that Ushio left V-Town without saying a word. Later that morning, Inoue's dad displays a weird mirror in his sitting room. Inoue sees the mirror and notices something off about it and tells her father that she does not like the mirror. Minutes later, Nakamura arrives at her house and Inoue joins her at school, and she suggests going to Ushio's house on their way home. At first, Nakamura declines to go, but she accepts after Inoue manages to convince her. At sunset, Inoue leads the way to the Fugen Temple. On getting there, they meet Ushio's dad, Shigure, who reveals that he had Ushio go meet a distant relative due to an emergency. He then adds that they have nothing to worry about because Ushio is on his way back. After the meeting with Shigure, Nakamura heads off upset because Ushio said nothing to her because leaving. Here she makes the mistake of saying that she is worried about Ushio, and Inoue hears this. Inoue then uses what Nakamura said to tease her because she always denies her concern for Ushio. Elsewhere, Kagari offers Ushio dinner and he displays his nasty appetite. After he finishes his first plate of food, he demands more because he is hungry. Meanwhile, Tora wishes to have some hamburgers like the one Inoue gave him in the past. In the meantime, Ushio reveals that he intends to travel to Hokkaido, and the Kamaitachi state that they will miss him. Later that evening, he stares at a reflection in a pool of water and finds out that Nakamura and Inoue are in trouble. Because of that, Raishin leads the way to a mountain where Ushio can get help. On getting to the mountain, a yokai named Elder comes out to speak to Raishin and his sister. Along the line, he detects the presence of the beast spear and runs away because he thinks that Ushio will kill him. Tora then catches up with him and forces him to speak to Ushio. Elder agrees and then displays what happened at Inoue's house moments ago. A few hours ago, Nakamura arrived at Inoue's house with Inoue. After they changed from their uniforms, they spent some time in the sitting room talking about Ushio. At some point, Inoue speaks of a summer break where Nakamura was present. At that time, Nakamura lost something important to her and asked Ushio to help her get it. That evening, everyone in the neighborhood searched for Ushio because he wanted time to come back home. Meanwhile, he faced a wolf who prevented him from getting Nakamura's toy. Along the line, Nakamura gets worried and tries to find Ushio. Eventually, she did, but the wolf dived to attack her. Just before the wolf could get to Nakamura, Ushio smacks the wolf on the head, causing it to run away. However, he carries Nakamura, who is unconscious at the time, and heads back home. On the way, Nakamura regains consciousness, and she receives her lost toy. Back at Inoue's house, Nakamura remembers this and smiles because Ushio was there for her. However, Inoue and Nakamura feel something strange about the house and wonder what is going on. Inoue then gets engulfed by a yokai from the mirror her dad bought recently. In the present, Elder reveals that the yokai responsible is Kiyoma. Ushio, upon getting this info, threatens Elder to find a way that he can save Inoue. In the end, Elder helps him, and he passes through a mirror and arrives at Inoue's house. On getting there, he sees Nakamura weeping on the floor. Because Ushio is in beast mode, Nakamura has trouble recognizing him, and after some time, he heads into the ancient mirror with Tora. While in the mirror dimension, Ushio flies to a realm where he sees Kiyoma holding Inoue hostage. Kiyoma intends to feed on Inoue, and Ushio cannot stand that. As a result, he teams up with Tora and eliminates Kiyoma, saving Inoue in the process. Later at night, Nakamura regains consciousness and finds herself being carried by Ushio. After Ushio confirms that Nakamura and Inoue are safe, he leaves the house while both girls assume that all that happened was a dream. Later that night, a legion of yokai expresses dissatisfaction over the fact that Ushio possesses the beast spear. The fact that Ushio's mother is considered an enemy of the yokai worsens matters for Ushio, because their hatred for him multiples by the hour. In the end, the yokais agree to prevent Ushio from leaving Tono Town alive. The following morning, Ushio holds out a comb that belongs to his mother. He then tells Kagari that he needs to go to Asahikawa in Hokkaido to find out why his mother left him when he was little. He says his goodbyes to Raishin and Kagari and heads off on his quest with Tora. Later that morning, along the line, Tora senses something off about the road. Ushio observes a change in Tora's countenances and wonders what's up with him. The atmosphere gets tense as Tora reveals that there are lots of yokais heading to attack Ushio. In a short time, a yokai flies to the bus and attacks the bus driver, causing him to lose control of the bus. Before the bus goes off the road, Tora escapes with Ushio. Even at that, more yokais head out from nearby walls and the ground ready to attack Ushio. Tora and Ushio manage to hold off the yokai for a while but run away to the forest because they are greatly outnumbered. While running in the woods, Ushio questions Tora on why the yokais are after him. Tora then replies by stating that probably Ushio has killed lots of monsters. At some point, more yokais proceed out of the ground and restrain Tora and Ushio in such a way that renders them immobile. Even at that, the beast spear drags Ushio out of that location to another point in the woods. In the meantime, Hitosuki appears before Tora and begins conversing with him. From the looks of things, Tora has a history with Hitosuki. On the other hand, Hitosuki thinks that Tora allied with a human to kill his fellow yokai, but Tora quickly opposes Hitosuki's statement. He states that he is not allied with Ushio, rather, he is haunting him so he can eat him. Out of curiosity, he questions Hitosuki on why the yokais are after Ushio, and he agrees to tell. In the meantime, the beast spear takes Ushio out of the woods and tosses him into a pool of water. After Ushio catches his breath, he senses the presence of another yokai and assumes an attacking position. The yokai in question agrees to reveal himself provided that Ushio does not harm him. After Ushio agrees, the yokai comes out of the water, and Ushio finds out that he is a kappa. Kappa means no harm, and he robs some fluids on Ushio's wounds to aid the healing process. A conversation begins between Ushio and Kappa, because Ushio has no idea why the yokais are after him. Kappa explains that the yokai are not after Ushio because he killed other yokais, rather they are after him because of his mother. It all started about 1,000 years ago, when a lone woman arrived in Japan from China. The form she took was merely an assumed form for a yokai with unimaginable power born in a foreign land. At the time the world was birthed, the cosmic chi was divided into yin and yang. The good yang chi were born as humans, while the others were born as yokai. This foreign yokai in question would travel from nation to nation, living among the humans of the land, until all was destroyed. Even the other yokais were not spared, and she sought to eliminate all yokai but herself. In the present, Kappa reveals that the monster is Hakumen no Mono, and Ushio looks shocked when he hears the name. Also, Kappa explains that yokais teamed up in the past to battle against Hakumen, but their enemy was way stronger than them. Humans, on the other hand, found out the true identity of Hakumen, causing her to flee in defeat, promising to return later in the future. In the present, Ushio's spear glows, and then Kappa points Ushio in the direction of a nearby town. Before he leaves, he appreciates Kappa for healing his wounds, and then bids farewell. At sunset, some yokai tells Raishin and Kagari to join them in the hunt for Ushio. Because Ushio has been of help to the Kamitachis, Raishin and his sister assume attacking positions to prevent the yokais from finding Ushio. Back in the woods, Tora questions Hitosuki about the relationship between the person who cast the barrier and Ushio. By default, he does not think Ushio's mom cast the barrier because humans don't live for 1,000 years. Hitosuki then reveals that the person was the first Yakume no Onna, the woman of duty, but he then adds that the leader of Eastern yokai will never be satisfied until Ushio is killed. Tora, upon hearing this, becomes enraged and then states that he will devour Ushio himself. Meanwhile, Raishin and his sister defeat the yokais headed in Ushio's direction. Back in the woods, Tora allows Hitosuki to go after Ushio because he does not want to come off as one who betrays his kind. He has mixed feelings about the whole situation and thinks deeply after Hitosuki leaves. Elsewhere, Ushio tears through a bunch of monsters attacking him on his way to the next town. While at it, he sees an old man and saves him from the reach of the yokais. He supports the man on his back and then heads to town. Late that evening, Tora suspends in the air and thinks deeply, while Raishi dashes through the woods with his sister hoping to find Ushio. Moments later, Ushio eats dinner at a restaurant in the town. Sitting beside him is the old man he saved from the yokais in the woods. The old man is named Numura, and he stares at Ushio while he displays a nasty appetite. After Ushio is done eating, he gives a brief history of the beast spear and how it affected his life while Numura listens attentively. After he is done, he offers the old man snacks because he has not had anything since arriving at the restaurant. Afterward, Ushio detects the presence of yokais while outside the restaurant and then powers up as a result. Meanwhile, lots of yokais arrive at his position and surround him. Even at that, he tells the Numura to run and then leads the yokais out of the town to save the civilians present. He manages to reach a safe distance from the town and faces the yokais by himself. Because he is outnumbered, he experiences difficulties, but Raishin arrives with his sister to support him. Along the line, Hitosuki arrives at the scene to join his comrades. He is significantly bigger than your average yokai, and as such poses a problem to Ushio and his team. Back in the woods, Omamori walks by herself, and after some time, the scenery changes to a place that leads to a temple. Back at Ushio's location, Raishin, Kagari, and Ushio are surrounded by yokais even though they have defeated a lot of them. Hideyosuke then attacks Raishin in a way that breaks his blades. Because Raishin and Kagari are young yokais, Hitosuke proposes to let them go only if they kill Ushio. They both resist the offer and proceed to attack a swarm of yokais even though they know they have no chance of surviving. Just before they get engulfed by the swarm of yokais, Tora arrives at the scene and launches a lightning strike that barbecues the swarm of monsters. This act of his makes Hitosuke call him a traitor, but in his defense, he states that Ushio is his food. He takes Ushio and the others back into the woods, but a mist covers Ushio's sights and leads to a different location. The new location features a temple, and Ushio hears a voice telling him to enter. While in the temple, the voice questions him if he loves his mother, and Ushio looks shocked because he was not expecting to be asked such. He then replies by stating that he does not know, adding that his mum was gone by the time he learned to talk as a kid. Ushio's quest for his mother is backed by the fact that his mother left him as a kid, and he wishes to know why. Along the line, he gets into a room where an old man, the leader of Eastern Yokai, sits with Omamori. When Ushio finds out about the identity of the old man, he proceeds to ask a bunch of questions relating to why the yokais are chasing him, but the way he asks the questions triggers the man to toss him to the ground. After Ushio gets up on his feet, the man states that he is being attacked because his mother earned the yokai's hatred. He then adds that Ushio's mum is protecting the natural enemy of the yokais with a powerful barrier. Ushio, upon hearing this, looks shocked because he never expected that his mother would be the one responsible. On the other hand, the old man explains that Ushio's mum is not the first person responsible for the barrier, but she is the third person sustaining the barrier. This explains why the barrier has been up for over these 1,000 years. Moving on, the old man lacks the reason why Ushio's mum protects Hakumen, and because of that, he asks Ushio to find out when he meets his mother. It appears that Omori put in a good word for Ushio in the past, which makes the old man have a bit of trust in Ushio. He promises to order the yokais to stop attacking him, and then leaves to give the order to Hitosuke. Just before the old man leaves, Ushio finds out that the man is the old man he saved from the woods in the past named Nomura. After Ushio gets out of the building, he sees Hitosuke facing Tora. Hitosuke intends to defy Nomura's orders and face Ushio in battle. Just as Ushio begins his transformation, Tora interrupts him, stating that he wants to fight Hitosuke. Finally, Hitosuke arranges for a match between Tora and Hitosuke, where Ushio goes free if Tora wins, while Ushio is at risk if Tora loses. The battle begins and all surrounding yokai cheer in favor of Hirosuke because of his size and might. He manages to deal damage on Tora in the first few minutes of battle, but pays a huge prize as Tora recovers his strength. Tora launches a series of coordinated attacks on Hitosuke, aided by his lightning. In the end, he wins the battle, but spares Hitosuke's life. Nomura pronounces Tora as the winner, allowing Ushio to be free from yokais for the time being. Out of curiosity, Hitosuke questions Tora on why he spared his life because the old him would have killed him without thinking. Tora then replies by stating that coming out after 500 years of captivity changed him a little. He bids farewell to Hitosuke in his own way, and then leaves with Ushio to their next destination. At this point, we have reached the end of our video. If you like it, do not forget to put the like button and subscribe for more new videos.